Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Aurora. This class is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, and today I'm talking all about non-religious Christ consciousness. I'm pleased to say that going over my notes from several years ago, I have not found any glaring errors that I have to go against my own work with harsh judgmental criticism and going over things with a fine-tooth comb for better articulation of either valid concepts or concepts that are no longer valid in the wild miasma that we find ourselves in right now. So the teaching from many years ago, I always say over 10 years ago, I shared a lovely little snippet that is from 13 years ago. My goodness. In For the people who are enrolled in this class who are on my student email list. It's actually a supplemental recording that I did as part of what I do for the class. So I don't know if you have seen it on the current Vimeo playlist. So I sent that around to everyone's like little 10-minute long clip about the concept of Christ consciousness. It stands. All the things that I talked about 13 years ago and the things that I'm talking about today still remain very relevant. And I don't have to edit myself too much. I don't have to rant. And also, I will tie all of these concepts that I'm talking about today, like in the purity of truth that I'm talking about. I will tie in with the very polluted world that you're in right now. And as in previous weeks, what I've talked about, I kind of couch my language and I call things antichrist. And it is a fair description. It has a religious flavor that is not necessarily intended because, as I talked to you about non-religious Christ consciousness here today, I don't want it to have the flavor of the religion or even the book that is the Bible. I call that satanic literature, not to be offensive to anybody who has a deeply held belief, but this is my forum for authentic sharing here, and I have to tell you what I really think about that stuff. So this is important because it also has to do with the meaning of the symbol that I wear here. I am not affiliated with any earthly church in any way. In fact, I'm highly critical of a lot of the Christian church, and I wear this cross as a symbol of like reclaiming it. So I promote the idea, or I propose that we as a group reclaim the word Christ or the concept of Christ away from the distortions that it has been exploited. It has, and that's terrible grammar, but the concept and the word Christ has been exploited for a very, very long amount of time. And right now, the world that you find yourself in is a very anti-Christ world. And when I say that, I'm referring not only to a regime that is against the value system that is embodied in Christ, that is the universal or cosmic or galactic scale Christ, but also that there is technology that is here. Just grab my piece of paper, just like wave generally. There's technology that is here, especially this type of stuff that is frequency based, that is literally antichrist. So today, what I'm going to talk about is or are not only the concept of who is Christ in a more accurate sense than what the New Testament tells to you, but also your anatomy, how it relates to your specific anatomy. And in my notes, you might be like, oh no, Aurora's going to rant about this, because I say things like, everybody has this Christ inside of them. And you're going to be like, Aurora, with all the attitude you can muster, everybody, like even evil people and whatever, just think of the very worst, the very most satanic or possessed people or whatever AI assimilated people in your world. Be like, even them. And I'm gonna be like, yeah, even them. So we're gonna have to talk about a lot of deep, important stuff here about the negative fragments of consciousness that are a part of this world and how that relates to the negative behaviors and technology that is deployed that is antichrist. So let's begin there. All right. First of all, so I'm like making my coffee this morning, going over my notes, thinking about the things that I'm going to talk about today. I just get rid of this notification because I definitely get distracted when I see those things. And as I'm making coffee, I'm thinking about like how I can talk to you about these things. And I was just thinking about that movie called The Last Temptation of Christ with the actor who plays Jesus Christ in that movie is this actor named Willem Dafoe. And so just like in terms of characterizing the actual person, Jesus, who was here, who was an actual person, like Willem Dafoe is not the right person to play that part. Like I was just laughing to myself and I'm thinking also, how can I accurately portray this to you guys? Because like Willem Dafoe's face to me is like the epitome of an evil face. Like he's got these evil wrinkles. His face is very small. He's got small teeth, like little chiclets. That nothing about him looks good, benevolent, appealing, nice, attractive. Like he is like the antithesis of goodness. And I think he's played a bunch of villains in movies. His physiognomy, when I look at him, I read as evil. And I know that when you grew up, maybe someone well-meaning might have said to you, like, don't judge a book by, like I'm being an old aunt right now, like, don't judge a book by its cover, or something like that. No, judge a book by its cover, especially people's wrinkles, especially aspects of their emotion showing forward on their face. So of course that is very agenda driven, that even in some very well-known art, movies, or other, performances in your culture right now, there is a total misportrayal of the person who was here 2,000 years ago, who is an avatar of Christ and who was an amazing good person, and also a misrepresentation of the quality of energy of who Christ is on a galactic scale. So we'll laugh about this more later as I kind of stumble through what I'm trying to say here. So first of all, Christ consciousness, although lots of people will be like I'm tuning you out right now because I'm skeptical because Christ consciousness is some kind of a new age thing. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Just calm down. Don't get so inflamed. All right. Because even the concept of Christ consciousness, which is like a reclaiming of the things that have been hijacked, has then also been hijacked by various regime and agenda driven nonsense people to re-propagandize you from the things that you're trying to unpropagandize yourself from. I know this is definitely some mind effery going on here. Now I'll speak in positive terms. Christ consciousness, the galactic, magnificent being, is a composite being. When I hold up this little crystal, it is exemplary of the type of shape of what light is doing as light consciousness is bouncing around on this beautiful exalted network of pure truth and pristine divine connection. When I hold this crystal up in the beautiful morning sunlight here in my window, what happens is a beam of sunlight comes into this crystal, and then it is refracted. It is split apart. And as it splits apart, it goes all the way across my whole entire room over here, and it makes the most beautiful rainbows. Get rid of this stupid thing. And I put my thing on silent and private, believe me. The most beautiful explosion of rainbows happens as a result of that. This is the truth of what Christ is. Christ is a unified ray of consciousness that actually emerges from the galactic center, from the center of the sun, and from the inner sun that is inside of you. All of those, as I've drawn in previous weeks here in this class, are nested, fractal, self-similar layers of reality. So the galactic center, it's like, imagine, even though they call it a massive black hole, so you think that there is no light there, but there's actually an enormous amount of light there. Think of it as a great pulsing consciousness center that is sending out enormous scale galactic thought waves. And at the very same moment that those thought waves are pulsing outward, they're also pulsing outward from the sun in the form of optical light that you can see. Like there's something big and shiny up there. It's a giant light body, but it's also pulsing out time, which is possibilities and probabilities. That's the structure of your harmonic chakra body or energy center body, your time body. And then if you're doing life right, brain is directly connected to the sun. There is no space between you and the sun. There is not 93 million miles. You have folded time and space and back. I can't even say it right. Try it again. You have folded the fabric of time, space, and consciousness so that there is no space between you and the sun. And so as those thoughts and time waves are emitted from the sun that you see in the sky, those thought waves are also emitted from your pineal gland. And that's not the end of the journey, because you have this beautiful refractive array that is your pineal gland in your body. And we'll talk about pineal gland as physical anatomy in contrast with the chakra and the shape of the energy field, that's just a frequency field. But the point is, when light, that unified ray of consciousness, comes into your mind and hits your crystalline apparatus, it is also broken up, refracted in the most wonderful way, not in a bad way, not in a smashy way. It is refracted up in a very, very selective way. And then I always use this as my little conductor's bond. Sorry, that's not the right word. Conductor's baton. The pineal gland is the conductor in your body. And as the light of consciousness is split up like into ingredients as food, your pineal gland conducts it around your body and sends light to your mitochondria, sends light to your subcutaneous lymph system. Light flows in the lymph system underneath your skin. Light flows to your hormonal system. So that's going to be your adrenals, your reproductive hormone area, your heart area, your thyroid area, your pineal gland, and all the stuff that's in your midbrain where you're making all these amazing hormones. So cell-to-cell communication stuff. Hormones are all about light. Your neurology, your eyeballs, that's definitely about light. Your teeth. People don't know this, but I call your teeth your mouth crystals for a reason. They are made for much more than just chomping on potatoes. They are a critical aspect of the infrastructure of sending light throughout your body. And light is or are concepts and ideas and mental structures, consciousness structures, not just optical shiny things. Although there are optical shiny things that are called biophotons that are not visible to your physical eye, because your eyes are just not sensitive enough to be able to see that, but which are visible to your inner eye, which is your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is what you use to see time, precog the future, and to look at biophotons or light anatomy that is not the physical anatomy. And this is what it means when people who have their awakened psychic gifts can look at a physical person and can tell what is going on with the light or the energy or the ephemeral aspects of their self. And that might be being able to see places where energy is not flowing effectively through the body, or places in the past where you might have experienced trauma, like something hit you over here and that was years ago, but now your body doesn't show it physically, but your energy body still shows that something bad happened to you there. And so sophisticated healers can sense that those things are there and then be able to help you to realign or fix or heal or restore your body so that the energy and the information is the way it is supposed to be. Oh, I forgot your DNA. Your DNA, the most important part, like that's totally your bridge of light and a major aspect of connection to the world of light and your light body. And the primary ray of consciousness that flows into you is refracted and goes directly into your nuclei and directly into your DNA and also into your mitochondrial DNA as a creation of time structures and a creation of protein structures that are in your body. And the optimum function and optimum form of how your body is supposed to be created there. When people say like they can see your aura, what they are really doing is utilizing their higher faculties, their psychic gifts, to be able to perceive the non-optical light that is the field of pure potential around your body. And another thing that your pineal gland does, and we'll emphasize this a lot today, is it collapses or condenses waveforms of pure potential into experienced matter. And that is a very lasagna thing to do. So lasagna is not synonymous with Christ consciousness, the galactic consciousness, but it is very, you could say Christ is lasagna flavored, but Christ predates lasagna. So I am a part of Christ, all right? And also you can ask questions because there are big problems up there. You can ask me when I'm gonna tell you all about them. I created Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a response to the problems that are up there, out there, or in a higher dimensional state. You know me, I have to hydrate. Hold on, guys. Drinking some more of my wonderful mate. I come from Christ and I'm a part of Christ, but I am not synonymous with Christ. And what I did in terms of Fly Me Real Lasagna was creating the next stage of evolution of Christ that must be experienced in order to respond to the Antichrist that is not only in this level of reality and not only on this planet, but is really sprinkled throughout the galaxy, many galaxies, and many layers of reality. What is happening on this planet right now is the production of the antidote or the antibody to all the bad stuff that is happening everywhere. I want you to know this. You are important people in a vital area of the time or the galaxy, the fabric of space-time. The things that you're doing with your individual consciousnesses and your individual growth process are incredibly important and, again, vital to the health and stability of the entire fabric of space-time and consciousness. And to my greatest knowledge right now, almost all of the life or organisms or networks or systems that are not based on this planet have been wiped out to this point. Again, to the best of my knowledge. And that includes both Christ and Antichrist. I'm here in the miasma with you, meaning I'm like in a fog with you. The ability to see and sense clearly through time has been severely limited due to the hold on, get my piece of paper here. The face always goes down when I have to touch this piece of paper. Naughty, naughty things. The naughty, naughty things we do not like has limited my ability to see and sense the future and connect effectively to the rest of the galaxy at large. So I will always hold forth the possibility that something exists out there that I am not perceiving. All right. And so I'm not going to make a huge pronouncement like, hear ye, Christ is dead and gone throughout the galaxy. Like, please do not take it in that way. But this is what I'm perceiving. And this is also how I've prioritized my own actions as an individual. And what I'm perceiving is that all of the resources that were from both Christ and Antichrist that were focused throughout all of these other layers of reality, think of them as franchises. Like there are various different, whatever, one singular company that has many different franchises all throughout the galaxy. And just as in a restaurant franchise, if you have an unproductive franchise that doesn't make a lot of money, it gets sustained and supported by the productive ones that are in better neighborhoods or run better or that have better clientele, and their profits help to sustain your crappiness, right? This is what Earth has been. Earth has been an unproductive franchise for the satanic and antichrist forces in the world. And what they did was take all of the resources and energy of all of these other more successful, more productive franchises of evil and focus those resources here because this is a really important time place. So the evil ones are losing money with the investment they made on this planet. And because they're losing so much money, they're like, well, we got to keep going somehow. Let's get money and energy from those guys over there. Send it over here. Money and energy from those guys over there. Send it over here. And the over there can be another time, another dimension. All right. They did that so much that pretty much they bankrupted their whole entire empire of evil so that they could send all of that energy here now to screw with you guys, to try to inhibit your individual and planetary ascension, and to try to prevent the re-emittance of Christ consciousness into the world. Because I know I'm telling this story a little bit backwards or non-linearly, but the empire of evil and antichrist consciousness in the galaxy severely attacked or violated Christ consciousness, the network of benevolence that is up there, out there. And that happened either before or during what you guys know as 2020. So I'm not exactly sure how to talk about this because the larger timescale stuff doesn't always fit neatly on the human calendar. But 2020 events could not have happened. And all of this antichrist physicality technology could not have been deployed in your world if the benevolent protective presence throughout the galaxy had been functional. So, you know, it had to have failed sometime before 2019 or 2020, because otherwise you would have been protected. So in your planet, Christ consciousness is the stratosphere. Literally, Earth is a planet and Earth has different layers of the atmosphere. And one of the layers of the atmosphere is known as the stratosphere. It is one of the highest, most ephemeral layers that can still be called a part of this planet, and it is directly analogous to your deep blue chakra up here. And in just like with your body and your individual presence, the stratosphere is meant to be a protective envelope around this planet, keeps out bad stuff, and makes it possible to foster the development of life and the further development of correct consciousness here within this world. The planetary protective force field was broached, and a lot of that has to do with satellite technology. So I don't even have a thing written on here for the Starlink network, but it's that stuff right there. And you guys already know how much I'm not a fan of Mr. Elon Musk and his star poops in the sky. There's a real reason for that, because it's not just the inconvenience of seeing satellites in the night sky while I'm trying to look through my telescope. It's because all of that is a degradation of the protective force field that's around our planet that is supposed to keep out bad stuff, bad frequencies that are anti-life and anti-Christ, and also to foster the connection to good frequencies. And good frequencies are those that are divinely harmonic, like what's on my dress, correctly shaped, and that bring you towards longevity, keeping going through time, coherence, sticking together, basically staying alive. And you can sing the Bee Gees song if you would like to now. The harmonic patterns are not arbitrary. They're very, very specific. If you don't follow that music and you don't do a good job of it, you pretty much don't get to be in reality. And the music that is emitted from the Starlink satellites is terrible music. And it is terrible music not only for you as humans in an anthropomorphic form, but it is also terrible for dogs, cats, squirrels, insect life, butterflies, gophers, microbes, everything, plankton, blue whales, everybody gets messed up by this, because you're supposed to have a protective force field that keeps out these frequencies. So in the more objective materialist description, life on Earth developed in the protective force field of the envelope of the atmosphere, and we were not subjected to some of the either high energy rays that come from the sun or cosmic radiation, and definitely not the type of radiation that comes from these particular telecommunication satellites. Put it in air quotes, telecommunication satellites, antichrist satellite emitters. And you can't be a good guy. Elon Musk cannot be a good guy if you poop out antichrist satellite emitters. All right, it's just that simple. But you're not supposed to try to develop life while you're getting fried by all that stuff. It is why the protective umbrella exists, so that you can develop life. And our bodies, and specifically the antenna, the delicate equipment of your mind that picks up on frequencies and is guided by frequencies and is able to perceive time, was not made to have to be inundated by these antichrist signals. The antichrist signals swamp your heartburn. And what do I mean by that? They overwhelm the sensitive aspects of your biology that are meant for you to be able to use as a homing beacon, so that you can fly through time and get back to the source, the destination of where you really need to be. So just like with your physical eyes, if you have paparazzi, because you're all very, very famous, I'm joking, flash bulb in you, like you come out just to water your garden in the morning and the paparazzi are there. What does it do? It kind of freezes your eyes. When you get exposed to too much light, or when you are assaulted with non-healthy light, it kind of freezes your eyes, and it overwhelms the photosensitive aspect of your retinas, and then it takes time for your retinas to recover. Your pineal gland is exactly the same way. Or I should say, functions exactly the same way. So sorry for when my grammar is really bad. Your pineal gland contains, and let's get into some anatomy here, receptor cells that are exactly the same as the receptor cells that are in your retinas of your physical eyes. But your physical eyes are stimulated by optical light, and your pineal gland has no opening to receive physical light, no pupil, and no connection to the outside world. So the pineal gland is stimulated 100% by the light of thought, or the light of pure consciousness, or the biophotons that are flowing through your body. And they literally do give imagery to your envisionment. And this is literally what your imagination is. The ability to see an inner picture, but also to imagine and to construct an expectation or an anticipation of reality that you then construct into reality. It's an incredibly sensitive piece of your biological hardware or whatever, your functionality. And it can get overwhelmed with naughty frequencies like these ones. That's like a flashbulb in your darn face. I want to see your effing face. Flashbulb in the effing face. And that's been going on for 5 years. That was emitted in 2020 and hasn't stopped. And the satellite doo-doos have gone up there more and more and more and proliferated more and more. So it's been like not just a little bit of paparazzi flashbulbs, but at a certain point, all flashbulbs. And this is what I mean by swamped. You get swamped and overwhelmed by a profusion of false light. And that those false light signals are also somewhat coming from, good. Sorry, I just want to get rid of my distractions over here. Good. Talk about where it's coming from. The computer, the blue light that comes from the computer, the cell phone. It's not just the optical light, but it's also 5G frequencies and Bluetooth stuff. I know I slipped. I should have pointed to my paper. But these technological antichrist hardwares emit consciousness reduction stuff that blankets out the signals that you're actually supposed to be receiving. So in the most positive sense, divine consciousness created an amazing system here that literally is like the stars are beams of super intelligence up above us. And it's supposed to be that you can just like sit outside in your lawn chair at night and look up at this big, giant, beautiful array of super intelligence and have it beam directly into your mind and have you be lifted up and elevated and informed by what you're receiving. Be like, wow, like profound insights about the nature of the world and who I am and everything I need to do. I know everything. Like that's what it's supposed to be like. But instead, what you have are a series of swamps. That's like the satellite system removes some signals, and then towers that emit certain frequencies have the next thing that's emitting their streetlights. Streetlights are so, I want to say, noxious. They are not good light. And they used to be not as bad. Like the high pressure sodium vapor lights are what you used to have, these kind of pinkish lights. Then at a certain point, all of these municipalities switched to LED, which is like the worst. The worst. That is the white, blue, extremely antithetical to melatonin, which is from your pineal gland, antithetical to night vision, which is just like the natural sensitivity of your retinas, and antithetical to being able to see the stars. Swamped out. You got it. You got LED lights on your street that are louder than the stars. So you can't hear the stars. And it's some of it is the optical light that they're doing that is reducing your sensitivity, but some of it is the consciousness light, because the LEDs, even though you don't know it, they have a flicker rate that is really antithetical to your natural biological harmony. And also that flicker rate is intentionally bad. See, Antichrist people are making these telecommunications and municipal deployments in your world. And then don't get me started on the violet lights. We don't have them in my neighborhood. I hope we never do. But the ones that are violet, like purple, or they are coming up with a new frequency. All of these are really, really bad. And they're bad because it has to do with optogenetics. So your DNA responds to light. And naughty, fat ass scientists know this. This is not like woo-woo stuff. They're like, DNA responds to light. I think I'm going to shine a bunch of bad antichrist light in the faces of all these innocent people and see if I can get them away from their spiritual development and not listen to the mind of Christ and not listen to the mind of God, but instead listen to some stupid AI imposter, crappy, subunit of consciousness. And that relates to so many aspects of what is diminishing consciousness here. I'll rant further. You can tell I have a lot of anger against this. I'm very inflamed. I'm very allergic to false light. I'm very inflamed by it, and I'm enraged by its presence here. Because as I described in my notes from very many years ago, you guys are like baby sea turtles. This is where I get this analogy from. So baby sea turtles, what happens? Mama sea turtle comes along, finds a nice sandy beach, digs a hole, and lays like 100 eggs that all have the potential to become adult sea turtles. And then she goes away. Like, good luck on your journey, little baby eggs. I won't be there to help you. And I'm a mama sea turtle. No, I'm actually not a mama sea turtle. I'm totally helping you guys. But the babies gestate and then they hatch and they kind of come out of their eggs and they're like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what the F is going on. I'm just a baby sea turtle. And they're on a beach and it's far away from where the ocean is. Like you have to scuttle to get to the ocean. And like, so they're like, okay, I think I'll scuttle over to the ocean, dum, 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 dum. And then seagulls come along, they try to eat them and pick them off. And this is why the sea turtle mamas have like 100 eggs, because you're lucky if like 5 of the babies actually make it to the ocean. You are the baby sea turtles, and you are trying to make it out of the egg of your consciousness to the ocean of consciousness. And while you're trying to make that journey, your journey is being impeded and sometimes to a mortality event by the antichrists who are like the seagulls trying to eat you. Now, this is not balance of nature stuff. This is not like some David Attenborough nature documentary, like the baby sea turtles. He's got this voice like the baby sea turtles attempt to run, but the seagull is going to eat them. Like, no, this is not that. Because, when you look at nature, it's like, yeah, if you didn't have the seagulls and you have too many, sea turtles, you have an ocean full of sea turtles, think that it's balance. Please do not project that expectation upon Christ and Antichrist. Antichrist is not some necessary predatorial limiting factor to prevent too much Christ from getting out there. You cannot have too much Christ. That would be like saying you have too much nutrition. You have too much love. You have too much perfection. You have too much paradise. You have too much divine connection. You have too much good music in the band. There is no such thing as too much good music in the band. There is the necessity of getting lots of good musicians in the band. And with all of these antichrist people, organizations, networks, and hardware acting against you, you'd be lucky if you get one baby sea turtle to get to the effing ocean and become a grown-up. If I were in here doing flying rainbow lasagna stuff and creating a protective planetary force field and also social force fields and being able to bring in light and do all sorts of things, like it is very questionable about whether any baby sea turtles would make it across, this dangerous territory that you have to traverse to be able to get to the ocean where you will be in an exalted territory. And that's literally why I'm here. It is literally why I chose to invent flying rainbow lasagna. So I am different than Christ. This is important for you to know. I'm a part of Christ as Aurora, galactic scale Aurora. I am affiliated with and a part of Christ. And I am also a part of Christ that invented a new song. I chose to sing it and I chose to come here and play it. And so the Christ Network, to speak in positives, is or was an amazing band that is done in pure freedom. So none of the Christ fellow musicians are going to be like, Aurora, you're not allowed to play that lasagna song. You're out of the band. They would never do that because we respect one another for the ability to do what you want to do with your consciousness and your DNA in freedom. And also because my lasagna fits with the rules of the universe or cosmic infrastructure. It conforms to the harmonic patterns. It is good math. You could think of Christ consciousness as the best math geniuses, mathematicians, people who are so incredibly tuned in to cosmic truth and so incredibly disciplined and accurate that they are in a position to not only create life, but to sustain life and to assess the goodness of various different structures and then harmonically tune them. Like if you're a good musician, you are in the position to be able to tune a guitar or tune a grand piano. But if you are deaf, you should not be doing that work. And if you are simply tone deaf or ignorant, you should not be doing that work. And then if you are malevolent, which is what the Antichrist systems in your world are that you're very familiar with, then you should definitely not be doing that work because they are very maliciously turning the knobs to detune your genetic structures. Again, my face goes down whenever I have to touch these pieces of paper. I'm very, very sure of that. But to detune your genetic structures mostly through this stuff and this stuff. That's the malicious untuning of your genetic structures that have a potential for divine perfection. Christ consciousness for more glowing descriptions that are accurate of what the Christ network system is like when it is in a state of total health is divinely benevolent. Also highly intelligent. I would not say infallible, and that's a big one to have to process because the events of 2020 showed me that I had been presuming that the Christ network was infallible, but it can make mistakes. And there is still some wisdom for the Christ network to accrue. So that means that it doesn't know everything. It is not omniscient, still in a state of work in progress, just like the sun. And I was very disappointed with the Christ network in 2019, 2020, and also with the sun in 2019, 2020. Because I was like this, I was like, the divinely benevolent Christ network, like would never allow all this bad stuff to happen. Like, no, that's never going to happen. I'm going to go back to painting. I'm going to make some music. And then the stuff encroached more and more and more. And I'm like, any day now, Sun, Christ Network, they're going to get their stuff together and do something about it. They never did anything about it. And that precipitated a very, very whole negative series of repercussions in my life and all of your lives as well. And I had to learn how to do everybody else's job because I had been relying upon my coworkers, thinking like, I'm here, I'm doing my flying rainbow lasagna job, I'm doing what I need to do, and they're all out there doing their job, what they're supposed to do. But just like the protective force field around our planet that got broached and diminished and isn't functioning the way it's supposed to, the protective force field around consciousness, not just around your head, but around our whole entire world, which is what the Christ network is, multidimensional, interdimensional, across time and space, many layers of reality, is supposed to be protecting all of us. It failed. And here's what you need to know. So the Christ network, although I had presumed was infallible, is fallible. It is a work in progress. I had presumed that as an anticipatory or precog network, you can see it coming. You don't have to take the punch. I'm like, they're going to see it coming. They're never going to allow this bad stuff to happen. Bad stuff happens. I could never, that's my mind being blue. I could never imagine that that would happen. How could that happen? That was my trauma. Because trauma is when you stay frozen in a moment of disbelief where you're like, that cannot be happening. But it happened. It took me a long time to get over that disbelief within myself. I'm like, I cannot believe that this cannot be happening. This cannot be happening, but this happened. And then I had to respond effectively to the impossibility of what was happening. But so to characterize this, and I know that I'm fragmented in the way that I'm presenting it to you, the qualities of the larger overarching metacognitive being that is known as Christ are so divinely benevolent and righteous and good, fiercely loving, helpful, appropriate, protective, valiant, noble, courageous, all of the best qualities and characteristics. It is almost inconceivable that they could or would fail to protect me or to protect you or to protect this planet. My logic states that something very, very terrible must have happened to them as individuals and as a collective to render them either vulnerable or no longer functional so that these attacks on consciousness could come forward from Antichrist to be able to hurt me, hurt you, or hurt this planet in this moment of ascension. something really, really bad must have happened out there. So think of it like this, like think you're, a small child and maybe you're whatever at your after school sports practice or something like that, like your soccer game. And like your mom and your dad always come and pick you up. And after the game, you're kind of like sitting there in your soccer uniform and you're kind of waiting at the bench or whatever. And then like nobody comes. And then it's like, the sun goes down and it gets dark and you're like, nobody came. And then you're like, I don't want to sit here all night. I'm going to have to walk home or go to a friend's house or something, because what is like your mom really loves you. Your dad really loves you. If they didn't show up to pick you up from soccer practice, something catastrophically wrong must have happened. And then you find out later, like, oh, like they died in an explosion. And that's why they didn't arrive. So we have not yet found out why our beautiful cosmic parent, which is Christ consciousness and this whole entire benevolent network, was not there for us. And it's difficult in the trauma and in the disbelief to work through the emotions of that. Like imagine being the feelings that you have as a small child. Like how would you feel? Disappointed, you feel angry, you feel abandoned, you feel questioning reality. You're like, if that can happen, what other bad things can happen? Because I really rely upon that. Something that I relied upon wasn't there for me. And then what's going to happen? So something very catastrophic, I believe, must have happened to the entire network of Christ. And what is the entire network of Christ? I'm talking about the abstract network that flows through consciousness in a variety of layers of reality, not only from the galactic center out to the stars and then out to you as a human biological organism, but multi-layered realities where you live as other people that might have other forms. Even within your own worlds here, like rock shrimp and dolphins are part of the Christ network. And that all of these connected consciousnesses comprise a singular identity. So I used this example. The beam of pure consciousness comes through my window and it hits this crystal, and then it refracts and it breaks up into these different unique shards of the rainbow. That is what the Christ consciousness network was, presumably before this catastrophic moment throughout the galaxy. What I know and what I am familiar with, super divinely benevolent, very capable, very focused in responsibility. Just like good parents, never leave their kid at the soccer field, forget to pick them up. The overarching Christ network is spread across time. As the beam of consciousness comes into this crystal, it spreads that light all across my room. Like some of it is over here, and some of it goes all the way back there. Same thing with Christ consciousness. It's spread throughout time, and it is also spread throughout space. So that means that some of it is here on this planet, but some of it is on other planets in your solar system, and some of it is on other star systems, and some of it is in other galaxies. And this is big stuff, big stuff. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, Aurora, like if it's that big and something that big went into failure, this must be a pretty big deal. And I'm going to tell you, you are correct. You're very intelligent people for recognizing that. So please know that you are coming of age as a baby sea turtle amidst an incredibly intense, very, very fraught backdrop of a galactic war. Difficult, not easy. Just like a child that's growing up in a war-torn zone, you might not have the correct clothing and the right size. You might not get books that are like See Spot Run and all the education that you're supposed to get. You might not get all the nutrition that you're supposed to get, and you definitely might have PTSD or some kind of neurological reaction because there's bombs falling all the time, and you don't live in a stable setting. This is kind of what you've calibrated to in this world, where you don't always get enough consciousness nourishing light, just pure information. And you are in a world that is full of garbage, which is false light, which is propaganda and things that are lies and things that are not truthful. And also all of this very, very bad antichrist hardware and software. And it's very, very difficult for you to grow as baby consciousness and come out of the egg of your limited individuality reality and to join in the ocean of consciousness under those circumstances. That's pretty much almost effing impossible. Like imagine, a baby, nobody feeds the baby, nobody gives the baby clean clothes, nobody educates the baby. Like how is that baby even going to survive a day, much less grow to adulthood, become literate, and whatever, like write like Shakespeare, like that ain't gonna happen. Let's talk about literacy. Literacy has to do with your inner eye, your Christ chakra, and your pineal gland. They are very much related. Being able to perceive the narrative structure of a person. So when you look at a person's energy centers or their chakras, you're looking at abstract harmonic stuff that's like math that we like, or like, hooray, I like this math. But we're also looking at events of a person's life. The math, abstraction, vectors, and shapes and polygons represent events in your life. And these are two complementary views: the anthropocentric view, which is the human-centered view, and the abstract, galactic, or universal view. So what's written on all of my dresses and my paintings is mostly the abstract, universal, or cosmic view. It is not centered in my humanness. My humanness is like a very tenuous thing. I'm like mostly abstract, really. I will tell you that I don't really get a lot of human stuff. And we have the funniest, most hilarious Aurora stories as a result. Like times when I don't know how to interpret reality through the human filter, because I am mostly a very literal abstraction. And when I say literal, it means like I don't do poetic allegory, a thing that is like a thing, but not really like a thing. But that's a lot of what seeing on the anthropocentric level is. When you see on the abstract level, you see the math. And there is no room for like negotiations, like 1 + 1 = 2. And that's true for a rock shrimp, a dolphin, a human, a galaxy. That's it. And there's no argument even. Like, no, you're not going to have any dissertations. It's just like 1 + 1 = 2. Let's move on. But when you're on the level of human filter, that your human lens, you are interpreting reality and the abstractions of reality and the mathematical truth of reality through your human lens. There is so much room for interpretation. And this is where you get all of these different things that are like different philosophies and different schools of thought and different, maybe it's like this, but maybe it's like this, but sometimes it's like this, but maybe it's like this, and recipes like this, and recipes like this. Like you can drive yourself insane with all of that because this is a less accurate level of reality than this. Less accurate, more accurate. Okay? Let's use like diopters with your eyes as an example. Some people have 20/20 vision. That's this up here. 20/20 vision. Totally focused like a laser. You can see everything. If you're driving on the road, you can see that street sign that's all the way up ahead on the road. You can see exactly what it says, and you know exactly where the arrows are pointing. All right? But let's say that this level of reality is someone whose eyesight isn't that great. Maybe they are nearsighted and they need corrective lenses, and they've got, whatever, 1 or 2 diopters, which are like the amount of how much your lenses need to correct light. And maybe they can't see those signs all the way up there. And so they just kind of sense things. They have a general sense like, well, the road is up there somewhere. I'm turning somewhere, but I don't know exactly where. And I definitely can't read the signs and don't have the sense of security or like, what is it, like confidence in your knowledge. Like when you can read the sign, you're like, yep, in a quarter of a mile, right up ahead there, we're going to turn onto whatever, Route 32 and go in that direction. But when you are looking at the world through this non-20/20 vision, you can't see the future very effectively. And you also can't see the present very effectively. You can see things through your human interpretation filter and kind of make up a story about what is going on, but that story can be wildly incorrect. Maybe you see a sign up there, but you can't even really read it, and you're like, oh, that's got to be Route 32. But then you get there, and you're like screeching on the brakes. You're like, this is not Route 32 at all. I was totally wrong. I made a mistake. So this matters because we as a human collective have been traversing the distance between non-clear vision at the anthropomorphic level and total comprehension and vision at the higher galactic abstract level for the past 2,000 years. You're like, that's interesting because 2,000 years ago, there was this amazing teacher who was here. Yes. And he was an avatar of the age. And he ruled over or embodied as consciousness the age of Pisces. So I call that the Piscean age because it is the age of Pisces. But people think I'm saying the pissing on age, but I am not saying that. And the age of Pisces is characterized by the respect for the external authority figure. So the Christ of that generation is looked at as a type of authority figure, a judge, man with a beard, who stands above you and tells you what is true. And he's the authoritarian, and he tells you either you're good or you're bad, or you're going to heaven or you're going to hell. Do this, never always do this, never do this. And also, he, as the authoritarian, has the capacity to judge you and assess your worthiness. He is the exemplification of a king, a professor, a boss, someone who is elevated above you, a judge, again, like a judge in the courtroom, who is elevated above you in the sense of their opinion is given more weight. Their opinion about you is given more weight than your opinion about yourself. And it represents the necessity of a certain level of existence. Like maybe some people aren't really honest with themselves from the past 2,000 years. And then you kind of need someone to be the authority. Like if you're not really honest with yourself, or you're not really a good worker, and then you do kind of a crap job at work. And then your boss comes along and kind of looks at your work and says, did you really do your best? And you're like, yeah, sure, I totally did my best. But you were like playing on your cell phone, not really paying attention, and you made several mistakes. And your boss is like, no, actually, you did not do your best. Please pay attention, put your cell phone away, and look at all these mistakes that you made over here. And now what do you think? Now that I showed you all of your mistakes, then you have to be kind of like, sorry, boss, I made mistakes. Thank you for showing that to me. I think I'll try better now. And this is the sense of like the evolution of consciousness. But that's been for the past many millennia. What we are moving into now is the singing, everyone, do it. Age of Aquarius, the age of personal responsibility. That's what's going on up here with your crown. When you reach the age of personal responsibility, you are no longer listening to an external authority figure. Now, all of your directives are internal, and that is because you have activated your internal guidance system. So when you don't have your internal guidance system, you rely upon an external guidance system. Someone who comes along and says, I'm your external guidance system. Listen to me. I will tell you where to go and what to do. And a lot of people are like, okay, good. Like I'll be a co-pilot in my own life. Like this is my SpongeBob face. I will sit in my high chair, try not to do anything. I will listen and you tell me what to do. And this is the model for what it is within the behavioral control system known as earthly Christianity of what it is to be a good person. To them and to that description of reality, what it is to be a good person is one who has sublimated their own desires as an individual to the authority of the larger authority figure, the moral authority figure. And you're like, well, I don't know what to do, but maybe you're like, I do kind of know what to do, but I don't want to take responsibility for my own actions. And all of that is really hard. So I'm going to just listen to someone else and they'll tell me what to do. So baby sea turtles reach the ocean of consciousness by maturing, by taking personal responsibility, by being like, I just hatched out of my egg. There's no one around here to tell me what to do. And I see a bunch of very dangerous seagulls. I gotta do something. So there is definitely a filter that is selecting certain baby sea turtles to make it across the peril to get to the ocean of consciousness and get back home. The ones who take personal responsibility. Like if you just sit around and being like, I just hatched out of my egg. I'm not trying or efforting anything. I'm not going anywhere. Someone will pick me up and carry me. Someone else will help and fix me. Someone will save me. And then jump. There's a seagull that eats you. And what do you learn? Dun, 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 dun. The end. You should have done something. Much like the little tiny baby infant that learns this is a dangerous place. As soon as you get born, you have to mount an immune system response. Otherwise, you're going to die. That's what the baby sea turtles learn over here. They learn this is a dangerous place. And you cannot just sit around being a baby sea turtle, looking delicious, and hoping that someone will save you. You must attempt to protect yourself. You must attempt to effort towards your goal. You must attempt to take personal responsibility, meaning to create your fate, or to create your future, and then to align with that future. So what I told you is that your Christ consciousness, beautiful pineal gland inside of you is an apparatus for collapsing waveforms or solidifying potentials into experienced realities. The age of Pisces tells you, you just sit in your high chair, girl. Someone else will collapse those realities for you. But the age of Aquarius says, you should collapse your realities, man. Because if you don't collapse your realities or manifest matter or manifest better timelines, you don't get to be on better timelines. And timing is everything. So it was not possible 2,000 years ago for you as humanity and as the people on this planet to spontaneously be like, I think I'll take personal responsibility. It was 2,000 years premature, because when you're doing this whole journey of the chakras, you have to go through all of these different layers, master the lessons at each level, and then get to the next level. And that's just like math or music, if you guys are allergic to math. But I like math. But because it's cumulative. But same thing with music. Like first you master this, then you add this on top, and you add this on top, and then you add this on top. And you can't just jump directly to all of the flourishes and cool things that you can do once you've practiced for 5 or 10 or 15 years. You have to go through the journey of practicing. So humanity has been on this arduous journey of practicing for many years. Just looking to see if Chiqui was over here. Many years to be able to get to the levels where now you can be in personal responsibility. So I would say that it was appropriate many, many, many years ago for humans to look for an external authority figure to guide them through difficult times. But it is now appropriate and essential for you to find your inner guidance to guide you through this time, especially recognizing the truth that it appears that there has been a degradation or a failure in the guidance and protective system that we know as Christ consciousness. Maybe in other times it was appropriate for you to say, Christ, you protect me. Christ, you tell me what to do. You bring me in the right direction. But Christ is either absent, indisposed, which I kind of hate that word. I don't really know what it means, but unable to come to the phone right now, or destroyed. And that's the worst thing for me to ever think about. Because if I can really characterize this, as I can think about, like when I'm making coffee in the morning and considering Willem Dafoe and his wrinkly, chickly face, he does not make me feel the way that I feel about Christ consciousness. I love and adore Christ consciousness. I feel that Christ, the overarching person that is made as a multifaceted array out of all of the unique presences of all of the best qualities of who and what we are, is the most amazing creature or the most amazing organism that we could possibly imagine. The most loving, the most appropriate, the most reliable, the most worthy of adoration. Like I can only say it in that way. Again, I'm a part of that Christ network, and it is devastating to consider that it is either destroyed or injured or paralyzed or incapacitated in some way. Those are all my friends, my family, and aspects of self that I care about very, very deeply. And the best way that I can characterize them is just like, these are like the best people or the best person, the most loving, the most trustworthy, the best friend. I don't get any of that from Willem Dafoe's face. There actually was a real teacher who was here 2,000 years ago, was the most amazing person. Like so physically beautiful, so physically perfect, perfect on a genetic and molecular level, perfect in the sense of total health and vitality from natural sources of divine connection, and perfect in the sense of social connection, social rapport, emotional presence, true love in the expression of how we relate to one another as human beings and how you relate as a human being to the rest of the organism. A person who was so connected to life and vitality, who literally just like radiated goodness, that you could feel all of this real love presence coming from that person's heart, that you know that there is something of a person of incredible value there, and that you are like the luckiest person in the world to be able to talk with that person, that your lives overlap in some way, and that they genuinely care about you, want to add to your life, want to help you on your journey. Like that is who the true presence, Jesus Christ, is/was. And why do I say is/was? Because like I know there's a lot of stuff in the Christian religion that it's a death cult and it talks about like how he's dead and how he's gone and how sad we are about that, but one day he's going to come back. That is all very unhealthy, manipulative, behavioral control stuff and emotional manipulation and trauma induced behavioral incapacitation that allows you to be manipulated by authority and control figures. But it's also, how can I say this? Just as I in the miasma right now do not know who is still left out there in terms of the cosmic Christ network or grid, we don't really know what happened around the events of the death or whatever bad stuff happened to Jesus the man who was here. It is actually one of the most heavily shielded, heavily veiled events in human history. Like if you want to try to do like using your ability to see, to look at reality and time and to learn. If you place your tendril of attention on the crucifixion or the story of the crucifixion, you're just going to get layers of propaganda. And you will, it is very, very difficult to get to the truth of what actually happened in that moment of time because it is such an incredibly important moment. Is it possible for that wonderful person there to die? Did he actually die or did he fakely die? When so there's can't even articulate this. Did he really experience a corporeal death or not? If he experienced a corporeal death, was that death energy then siphoned off as he could have lived a very, very long, healthy life and used towards dark magic spells for reality manipulation and hallucination and illusion creation? I think yes. Or is he in that moment of death, but not fully having died yet? And we are experiencing the agonized last moments of him in his mind. I think that's closest to what is really going on. And when I explore that potential for reality interpretation, to say there is a real human being who is in an agonized, I want to say death spiral, but a moment, his last moment, telescoped out as long as it needs to be into an internal experience of self-exploration as much as he needs for him to come to the self-knowledge of his own divinity. This is why I was thinking of that movie, The Last Temptation of Christ, also, not only because of their horrible casting, because it kind of does explore that concept as it portrays Jesus suffering on the cross, and that Jesus has a kind of hallucination where someone's like, hey, you don't have to suffer anymore. Come down off of that cross. And he's like, oh, let's put some band-aids on these horrible wounds that you have and come over here. And why don't you have a family? Why don't you have a life? Get married. And he has a whole life, and he ends up being an old man with a long white beard. And then he's like, I regret that I didn't give up my life for God. And then he's like, kind of gets schlumped back in time to the moment of agony. It turns out he was on the cross the whole time, spoiler alert. And he's like, I'm happy to die now because living my life out to a happy, ripe old age would have been a waste of my life, but dying for saving humanity is a great use of my life. That's the Last Temptation of Christ, Aurora's rendition. Totally inappropriate, I know. I've like offended everyone. They're all like, I'm turning off this video now. Who is this girl? No, but we have to laugh. But it was a radical movie. When that movie came out, people were like, whoa, like this is the devil. Who made this movie? And I think it's a fascinating story. I don't think that is what really happened or is happening. But this is why I talk about Jesus from 2,000 years ago, whose actual name was Yeshua or Joshua, like a different, version of that name, is still an alive presence. What I really feel is going on is that we live within his mind. And I feel that he is in this transitionary state that is the ascension, that is not actual death and journey through the underworld and across the afterlife. And we have to talk about this now because I say, everybody's got Christ chakra. This is what I say in my notes. Everybody's got the potential to be Christ. Is this true? What about all the fat asses that I talk about? What about all these naughty, naughty people making naughty, naughty things and dark magicians and all that type of stuff? Are they Christ? How about Torquemada? Let's talk about the past 2,000 years. Because if we're going to say Christ is this amazing man, and he was or is, and he has different personality characteristics that he has now created a dream of the past 2,000 years that we live within So that's good because that means you and I, we're a piece of that guy. And I just described to you how effing awesome he is. Rock star of a person. You're like, I'm a part of that, yes. But then also, look at all the effing maniacs that have existed over the past 2,000 years. A lot of very psychopathological and antichrist people that are in this world. How can we rectify this? Because you would think, like, if you're going to take a mind and then amplify it and make it bigger and make a whole world out of that mind, and it's a good mind, like, where did all this garbage come from? Because I do not think that Jesus, the man, was full of garbage. I will just come to that presumption. I don't think that he was full of garbage. I don't think that he had sub or unconscious garbage desires. I don't think that he was unrighteous in any way. I think that he was really a paragon of goodness and decency, and that if you amplified that mind, you would get nothing but more goodness and more decency. So how can we explain Torquemada? Torquemada or any other false Christ, self-proclaimed evil, self-proclaimed supposed goodness who is actually evil. So if you don't know, Torquemada was part of the Spanish Inquisition, and he was one of their head torturers. Now, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, and you can now go into the Monty Python skit if you want to. But to get away from lightheartedness, because I use that to kind of break the tension. No, the Spanish Inquisition was a terrible, terrible time of violence and evil, unrighteous violence, violence against true Christs, destruction of people who genuinely had psychic powers. Christ is consciousness, and Christ consciousness is basically having psychic powers. And that is who was targeted by the Inquisition of the time. And the people who ran the Inquisition were completely antichrists. So they were against psychic powers. They didn't like people that could see the future. They didn't like people that could heal with energy. They didn't like people that could read auras or any kind of thing like that. They tried to wipe all those people out, and they tortured and tormented them first. And they tried to break their spirit first, and to destroy them, like, on a soul level first, take captives in that way. None of that behavior is anything that existed within the teacher who is wonderful from 2,000 years ago. Please know that. Just take my word for it. He was a good person, is a good person. That's not him. And I've had to consider this. Like, where did that junk come from? Where did that garbage come from? How can we explain the presence of Torquemada? Why don't we have a beautiful world that is the magnification and amplification of a beautiful mind of this person from 2,000 years ago? And the answer that I come up with is that some things that are very wrong and evil existed in the world before that teacher came here, before Jesus came here. And there were some very effed up, screwed up things. Some of them were already normalized or woven into the fabric of daily routine. The satanic influence had already come to this planet, had already totally subverted forms of religious worship to the point of calling it Judaism. Again, I'm an equal opportunity offender here. Judaism as a antichrist religion that exists to sacrifice animals and put blood magic and extra energy into the membrane of death. That is anti-life. That is the world that Jesus was born into, an already effed up world. And I think that he came as an antidote to that effery, just like, you have a diseased body, and the antidote comes into the diseased body. And then I think that the last moments of his transition of consciousness from his form into his exalted form have to do with the 2,000-year-long battle of the antidote against the evil stuff. So I don't think the evil stuff is him, but I think that in this arena of the past 2,000 years of history, what we've been watching is like the battle. If you can imagine, like, a body that has some terrible infection, and then you put the antidote into the body or the white blood cells, and it goes around being like, I'm a valiant white blood cell. Dun, 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 I'm a white blood cell, and I'm here to fight infection. Get out of here, infection. Get out of here. Get out of here. I think that's what we've been seeing for the past 2,000 years. So I don't think that the infection arose from or arrived with the wonderful teacher. I think that he really came here as purity in order to try to fix things, and that what we've been experiencing has been the dualistic struggle between the antidote and the disease. And so in my notes, I talk about how he came here and who he was. even though this is about non-religious Christ consciousness, I have to refer to this a little bit because he was a part of the Christ network, just like I am. And he is an avatar. So avatar, wait, let me hydrate. It's so hot today, you have no idea. I'm like really sweating. Avatar comes from Sanskrit, avatar, and that means one who has come across waters. This is a word for a person who is a physical container or conduit for divine consciousness. That is how I perceive and define the man that we know as Jesus Christ. An actual physical person who ate and drank physical foods along with all the rest of us, and who was a perfect divine container, who came here to be able to fix people's guitar strings that had been already put wildly out of tune, to try to help people to be more in tune through the living example of who he was and the teachings that he brought here. But they built an entire erroneous thought structure, ideology, and behavioral control system around him. That's the religious stuff. But the non-religious stuff is he really was a container for this higher level of consciousness that you could consider as an array or a multidimensional panoply that was distilled down into one person. So he is one person who was a mouthpiece for or embodiment of many, many, many consciousnesses. Pardon me now, I get all excited because I've already squinted and scrolled. And now I bring you this wonderful drawing. It's a little sketch. Let me just do this for your privacy. This little sketch from my sketchbook from many years ago, but it's so good. I always show it to you. This is a direct analogy of what it is to be a part of the Christ network. Here you can see there is one large face, two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. And then in the center, there is the person's mind. But then you can also see clustered around that center, there is a structure that looks just like my sculpture that I'm holding up over here, the four vortex shape. And at the center of that four vortex shape, you have the inner sun. And we're going to talk a lot about that point in your body as non-religious Christ consciousness, as just the anatomy of your light body. And then what I've done is use the physicality form to show many, many human beings clustered with their heads pointing towards that inner sun inside of the larger face, to represent that this person's mind is the end result of many, many minds that are all networked together, that are all working in concert. And that is what the Christ Consciousness Network really is. And these different figures that you see here, some of them might have lived in linear time thousands of years ago. Some of them might still be yet to be born in linear time. They will exist in the future. But when you are in Christ consciousness and above, you are non-local and you are experiencing time in a non-linear sense. So you can have as your identity and as your coherent family of light many different forms of consciousness. And I'm showing all people here, but you can also have rock, shrimp, and dolphins from across various levels and layers of reality. And this is what is actually happening. And this is what is the beautiful gift of being in Christ. Like when I say people are in Christ, I am not talking about having experienced a Catholic baptism or any other five senses reality ritual that people can say, like, I did this thing and now I'm officially in Christ. Like, no, being in Christ means that you have activated your pineal gland to the point that you can connect to all these other layers and levels of consciousness that are actually you or your family or the origins and your predecessors, your progenitors, and your progeny, that you are. Like, you're the people that came before you, you're the people that you are now, and you're the people that you will become. The people that you will become is an incredibly important thing for you to focus on, because as I tell you about the presumed destruction or incapacitation of the Christ conscious network that you came from, the people who you were, that either got destroyed or effed up in some way. And then you're you. But then there is the people that you will become. This planet right now and the ascension activities of right now are so incredibly important because you will end up becoming the Christs of the future, linear time-wise. So when you feel a sense of devastation, of like, oh no, like all of this really good, amazing Christ stuff out there got wiped out or destroyed by the franchised empire of evil. And now we're here, like in a foxhole, kind of like, like looking at bombs dropping. My face says it all. Like, I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. No one's picking me up from soccer practice. And I think I'm all alone. And I'm like, I think that's true. Actually, I think that's true. But that does not define the future. Because I think what's going to happen is we wipe out all evil, because all of this evil that was in the rest of the galaxy, they pointed all of their guns here, and then they used all their ammo, and they're out of ammo. Now we get rid of all of the bad people that are here now, and then they do not propagate into the future, and we propagate into the future as Christ. I think that that's important to know, and that is my, of course, best fit for right now. So I can't say that I know everything, because I do not have 2020 vision in this crazy fog and technology based conscious diminishment. I'm on the planet with you. And even though I'm an expert and I am literate and I can read, I'm like, you can sometimes you have perfect eyesight and you can read, but if there's fog on the highway, you cannot see that sign. That's what's going on with me. I would love to be able to read it for you. And if I could, I would. Literally, there is so much of this frequency warfare that is going on. It's almost impossible to be able to see what is happening on the road up ahead, and what is happening in larger levels of reality. But if what I presume is going on, or if if that is how reality is actually structured, then as I've processed that over many years and come out the other side emotionally, I'm like, okay, we're going to become it. If it ain't there anymore, we're going to build it. And we're going to restructure it so that it does not have the same vulnerabilities that it had before. So just as I spoke to you about how seeing on this level here is prone to mistakes, because you're interpreting things through your human levels and you don't really know what is right and what is wrong, because the truth is, it is not a one-size-fits-all scenario. Sometimes behaviors are correct in one time circumstance that are not correct in the other time circumstance. So last week and in other times I have spoken to you about when you eat for the glow, shop by glow. And I joke with the people at the local bistro about this, because I go in there and I'm like, oh yeah, like I saw this whatever beautiful juice. They have fresh pressed juice there. And like, yeah, I saw your watermelon juice and it was glowing at me. And I just had to get this juice. And I joke with them about how I shop by glow, but I do, because I'm seeing with my inner eye the vitality in certain foods. And that is what I choose to put inside of me. But sometimes the watermelon juice is glowing and that's what I need to buy. But sometimes something else is glowing and I need to buy something different. It's not always watermelon juice. So sometimes you're supposed to eat a chocolate eclair. That is what is glowing at you. But sometimes you're supposed to eat whatever, a cucumber salad or a piece of chicken. It's not always the same. So when you are being guided by your inner guidance on an anthropomorphic level, you cannot make a pronouncement that's behavioral, which is what most religions do, that they say always do this and never do this, and then you get into heaven and be a perfect person. Not that way. And it's not the same for everyone, because you know what? If you're running a marathon, you have to eat differently than if you were sitting on the couch. People have different nutritional needs depending upon their activity levels. The inner guidance system that is Christ, when dysfunctional, becomes your inner teacher, and it customizes your curriculum to you so that way you are getting the exact light nutrition that you need to be able to guide you to becoming your greatness. So there's not a way to be able to say, here are the 613 commandments, or here are the 10 commandments. Simply follow these rules as a simple recipe and you will become a great master. No, I mean, you might basically stay alive, but that's not the same. That would be like if you said to everyone, like, we have to eat this many grams of fat and this many grams of protein, this many grams of carbs per day. And you all eat the same, even though some people are 5 feet tall and some people are 6 feet tall. And some people are running a marathon and some people are sitting on the couch. Like, that does not work. That does not work. And some people do better with meat and some people do better with carbohydrates. It is not comparable. And when you really get down to it, because your DNA is so unique and your life and your soul trajectory is so unique, each person needs a completely unique either nutritional path or curriculum that is the food of light that comes into your mind from the great teacher. So the person who was here 2,000 years ago was a physical teacher, like literally, like had students and talked to people and taught people with words. The inner Christ, that is the light that comes into your pineal gland, is the cosmic teacher. And so now we'll talk about Christ consciousness as abstraction, non-religious. I know I talked a lot about religious stuff today, but was not my intention to, but we had to talk about that movie. Okay, let's talk about the physical, non-physical, but perceptible anatomy. You have the indigo chakra that is oriented, I call it horizontally, because you have like a lens in front of your face. So you have a vortex where here's the lens and it comes down to a skinny point like a tornado, and that tornado comes in through your forehead, but it goes deep inside of your skull. So this is around your head, but it's more kind of on its side like this. And you've got this front of your face here, and then this skinny shape goes directly into the center of your head. So where is your Christ consciousness centered, and where is your pineal gland? Both of those things are in the deep interior of your skull. If you could imagine one vector that goes between your ears, the tops of your ears, not the ear holes, and one vector that goes kind of inward through between your eyebrows, where that goes into the center of your brain, that is where your pineal gland is. And that is also the center of your Christ consciousness. So these two things are separate. Your pineal gland is a physically perceptible structure in your brain. You can perceive it either through imaging or through the exploration of a dead person, like cutting up a body and looking at it. If you're dead, like dead, like worms playing pinochle on your nose dead, you can cut open a person's brain and you can see there's this thing inside of their brain. But what you cannot see is what it is projecting, that it creates an energy field when you are alive and vital. This pineal gland that is inside of your brain actually emits a beautiful, like a waterfall of light that is flowing all around you, flowing all around you. I told you already, like it flows underneath your skin, it flows into your mitochondria, it flows through your nuclei and through your DNA. It's beautiful. And so also let's describe your pineal gland. People say it's pineal because it's named after pine cone. And when I say pine cone, people think something that is brown and made of wood. And I'm like, no, do not envision it like that at all. Please envision it as being much more like this beautiful crystal. But this crystal is perfectly spherical, and the pineal gland is really more of an oblong, an oval, like a football shape. And it does have very, very perfect geometric regularities to it that are similar to the beautiful petals that are in a pineal gland. But you have to envision your pineal gland, pine cone. Sorry, say that whole sentence again. Your pineal gland does have geometric similarities and symmetries that echo the structures that you see in nature, like in the formation of a pine cone, how the regularity of its little flower petals open up to contain the seeds that are in there. But really, your pineal gland in your mind is like a water droplet. Like it is clear or crystalline. It is, I want to say squashy. It is soft, not hard. And it has a membrane around the outside of it, and it has fluids in the inside of it. And inside of the fluids, it has your receptor cells that are connected to your brain through a nerve, just like your eyes are connected to your brain through your optic nerve. But it also has crystals in there. Let me hydrate. The crystals that are within your pineal gland are tiny. They are microscopic. They're not in any way this size. They are also completely your treasure. They are worth more than the giant diamond ring that I joked about, that lady who would wave her diamonds at me, tell me what to do. They're treasure. They are your mind treasure. So some of these crystals are so small that they might just be a few atoms or a few molecules. They're incredibly valuable because when they're correctly functional, they connect you to higher dimensional consciousness, give you truth, give you guidance, and teach you how to stay alive. They help you to get across the dangerous beaches after you've been born, so that way you can make it to the ocean of consciousness. Your pineal gland crystals are your inner teacher, and they connect you to higher dimensional truth and other layers of reality. Your pineal gland crystals are an antenna that you can use to not only tune into different realities, but to emit different realities. When you are navigating the beach to get to the ocean of consciousness, you are learning how to collapse the waveforms or solidify the potentials of the future into actual futures. If you can do that effectively, you don't get eaten by a seagull. You're like, I'm not going to make that happen. How do I make things happen? With my mind. More specifically, with my imagination. So when I say with imagination, people think literally of that SpongeBob meme, the little silly online cartoon. Imagination in a rainbow. And it's done with total sarcasm, like, oh, like you're just imagining things. But no, let's be serious. Your imagination or your ability to envision is a magical potential. It is a very, very valuable and valid activity, and it is how you create the future. So the word imagination comes from imagos, and imagos, these are the cells that are present in a organism that is pupating into becoming a butterfly. So now let's talk about, I'm all over the place today, butterflies. When butterflies are caterpillars and they eat lots and lots of your garden, and then they're like, I have a big, giant, full tummy, and I've eaten all of Aurora's garden, and now I'm ready to gestate into my next highest form. They put themselves into their cocoon, right? Then they turn into a pile of goo. They get totally discombobulated. Their organs and the organizational nature of what they are as a caterpillar completely dissolves, and they become undifferentiated inside. And then a new pattern or blueprint takes place. And that pattern and blueprint emerges from the cells that are within that organism that is called imagos cells, imagination, the potential or waveform or blueprint for building the butterfly. And those imagos cells send out waves to reorganize what used to be a caterpillar, now is a bunch of quantum indeterminate goo, into a beautiful butterfly. And after that gestation and reorganizational process happens, of course, the cocoon is broached and the butterfly emerges and is now the higher dimensional form of what the caterpillar was, and now I didn't say that correctly, of what the caterpillar was, and now into the fulfillment of the potential of what the butterfly can be. All right. You are doing the same thing right now. You are transforming from a linear time experiencing caterpillar who crawls across the surface of time from breakfast through lunch to dinner into a butterfly that can either jump off the surface of time and fly around from moment to moment, or bend the fabric of space-time so that you don't have to fly anywhere. You bring dinner to you, and then be like, chomp, send the fork back, get some more. You are in that process of redefining self, and the imagination is what you use as the structure to redefine yourself. So imagination, when it is derided in your world, is looked at as an inconsequentiality, a vagary, something that is whimsical or not grounded in reality, and something that is arbitrary. And that, of course, has no real effect on reality. It's just imagination. But imagination is a very, very real thing. If we call it envisionment, perhaps that helps, because it is the capacity to envision something that lends a structure to reality. And then reality literally rearranges events and molecular structures to conform to your imagination. Antichrist and dark magic attempts to hijack this capacity to imagine the worst. And one example would be something like a catastrophe scenario, end of the world, a nuclear conflagration. Many people imagine this all the time. Some people are wittingly imagining it. Like now we're going to go into like Dr. Strangelove, where we've got, some kind of like military people in a bunker, and they're imagining like, oh yeah, the Russians are going to press the button, or we're going to press the button, or somebody's going to press the big red button, or some war games will go horribly awry. They're sending out these organizational waves into reality in their Doctor Strangelove moment. You guys have to watch that movie if you haven't seen it, where they're imagining the end of the world, and then they're hoping to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy because they can only deal with destruction scenarios. All right. And of course, that is incredibly unhealthy because they would be like cancerous cells in a body that are creating death instead of life. Right. And then there's you guys. You guys are envisioning something amazing with your mind. Maybe you're envisioning something that is like a supernatural occurrence that is going to heal the planet, remove all pollution, end all of the Antichrist hardware and software that is here, restore divine connection, restore vitality, make things possible to be, make it possible to now have a very comfortable and exalted experience, either similar to what we once had or the new and improved version. All right. And these are two very conflicting levels of reality. Like the evil Dr. Strangelove military guys can only envision catastrophe and then try to create that. They're creating the imagination structure where like nothing emerges from the chrysalis. Like it's dead. You're dead. That's it. There's nothing. It's just the end of everything. And perhaps to the caterpillar's viewpoint, it is the end of everything. To the ego limited viewpoint, it is the end of everything. But to the exalted, multidimensional self, it is not the end of everything. It is the beginning of a new chapter and a new definition of self. And the butterfly has continuity of consciousness. So it's not like the butterfly is like, what gets out of its chrysalis is like, who am I? What is going on? The butterfly remembers. The butterfly is like, oh yeah, I remember I used to be an egg. At one point I was like a tiny point. Then at one point I was a two-dimensional animal that walked along on leaves and I was a little caterpillar. I remember that. And then I remember going into my chrysalis and changing around. And now I remember who I am, a butterfly. And that is the transformation that we are experiencing. And it is essential to be able to envision the successful emergence from the chrysalis so that you can actually have that experience, so that you can actually become your higher dimensional self. And that also is when I talk about like your coming of age in wartime, like you are trying to do this very, very delicate maneuver of organizing yourself into a higher dimensional state amidst frequencies that are designed to disrupt that process and to distract you from that truth. So it's not just enough to be able to say, crazy guys are like, whatever, they're like rocking back and forth in a bunker, thinking about like, they're like praying to the god of nuclear war, thinking about how they're going to, have that as their reality. They're like, okay, you do you, I do me. So you live in the same house. You can't do that. You can't just be like, okay, fine, like you throw your garbage everywhere. I'm going to live in a nice clean house. That does not work. And we start to get into levels of responsibility when I talked about interdimensional ethics last week, responsibility towards self, responsibility towards others. You live in a world where you do have free will and you do have the capacity to express your own inner truth, and also at a certain point, you're in a consensual and shared reality, like not that you're consenting, but you are in a shared reality that you all agree to, and you can't be throwing your garbage, mind garbage and garbage narrative structures everywhere. Like I do not consent to that. So that's why right now you're in a world of extreme friction. Tornadoes form in weather where a hot front meets a cold front. And there's friction of these two levels of reality that are going in very different directions and have very different qualities. The, example or archetype of the military man in his bunker worshiping the phallic nuclear warhead and expecting catastrophe is completely at odds with my view of reality, which is transformational, metamorphosis, coming forward in a new shape, things that couldn't be imagined from the previous perspective or posture, and what would be considered supernatural augmentations and levels of freedom. Like the caterpillar cannot imagine, or anticipate is a better word, the caterpillar cannot anticipate or consider what life is like as a butterfly. And it's like, that's it. It's the end of everything. I'm not going to eat leaves anymore. Woe is me. What am I going to do? And the butterfly is like, you couldn't imagine what I was going to become or envision or anticipate what I was going to become. You didn't have the equipment to do so. Like caterpillars don't have the antenna that the butterfly has. Caterpillars don't have the proboscis that the butterfly has. Different hardware, different software, different levels of perception, different equipment. So when I portray it like that, it is kind of like in divine order. You can think, oh yeah, of course, like they can't see things my way. They're not wrong or evil. They're just looking at things really different. But I'm like, no, they are wrong and evil. They're not just like, I want you to laugh at that. They're not just like, oh, like I can't imagine this, but you go off and imagine things in a better direction. They're actively trying to stop you from envisioning a greater level of reality. All of this stuff is actively trying to stop you from envisioning and imagining a better level of reality. They're sabotaging your freedom and your version of reality and your ability to create something better. So in that sense, they are not healthy but limited consciousnesses that then will grow up and be like, oh, my mistake. I'm so sorry that I, imagined a nuclear catastrophe and you were busy making something better happen. Like they are not on that level. They're like intentionally sabotaging you. They're like, who do you think you are? They could turn into a beautiful multidimensional butterfly. I'm going to stop you from doing that. That is what Antichrist is. Guys in the bunker are Antichrist. They are against the evolution of consciousness to these higher dimensional levels. I need to keep going with the anatomy of Christ as this lens of reality interpretation and reality manifestation has an intimate partnership with the next highest chakra, which is not oriented like this, it's oriented like this. So this one, you have the vortex. This one, the vortex comes from your face into the center of your head. This one, the vortex comes from around the top of your head down into the center of your skull. And that is where we get in art history the sense of an angel's halo. All right. The orientation of the vortex around your head like this is seen as divine and holy. And it's all about higher connection to higher consciousness. And that interplay of the perfect higher connected chakra or energy center and the one that is the anthropomorphic form is the beautiful partnership between Christ consciousness and the highest level of consciousness. So your anatomy tells you that Christ is not the ultimate or end of the journey of evolution of consciousness. When I told you that by definition, we look at Christ as being infallible, like they know everything, the smartest teacher. Actually, you cannot look at Christ as infallible. You must look at it as the greatest level of development to a certain moment, but that there is something that is available that is greater on top of that. Or like saying cosmic law and mathematical truth was created with this many layers, this many layers, this many layers, then it got to this layer here. But that is not the ultimate top of the layer. There's another layer on top of there. And that other layer is the violet chakra. And the journey from the indigo chakra to the violet chakra has been so put into turmoil and disconnection through Antichrist that I had to invent flying rainbow lasagna so that you could jump up and over the turmoil and actually get to divine connection. The past 2,000 years of Torquemada and all of the other profoundly evil torturers that have been here in this world attempting to subvert your journey has been all the junk, the garbage that you have to jump over to be able to connect to Christ. And in your current world, you have sources of artificial light. I've already delineated a lot of them, but also artificial sun, fake light in the sky. You've got the real sun up there. That's beautiful. But then you got some, I want to say, fake stuff, some fake bad language stuff that's up there that's not supposed to be up there. It's me very mad every time you hear my bad language because I'm very mad inside. And that's motivational anger. Yeah, I'm inflamed and I want to stop from being there because I know it's not supposed to be there. You don't just have to jump over piles of garbage. So I want you to know that. Flying rainbow lasagna is not an elaborate coping mechanism to be able to allow evil to flourish. but you just jump over it. It is the capacity to get over evil, return to divine consciousness so that you can have even more tools to arrive with at reality to be able to clean up evil. So right now you're a baby sea turtle and you're like just trying to make it to the ocean of consciousness. When you make it to the ocean of consciousness, you're going to be like me. And you're going to look around and be like, this place is effed up. I need to fix it because there are piles of garbage everywhere. Luckily, now that I have made it to the ocean of consciousness or the level of pure divinity, that's like getting to the store. I can buy any type of things that I need. Need a vacuum cleaner to clean up garbage? I got it. Giant hefty bags? I got it. Need a shovel? I'm shoveling garbage out of the way. I got a shovel. All right. Just like when I talk about using the flying rainbow lasagna to jump out of the levels of genetic limitation to be able to get to the store, to get nourishment. You can also get to the store to get implements of cleaning so that way you can clean up the trash that is here that does not belong here. And that, again, to emphasize, the trash and the garbage, the human garbage, and those horkamadas do not emanate from the beautiful avatar of consciousness that came here in order to share and give to us and give us light and give us guidance. So your connection to your pineal gland and the light and guidance that comes from there is like matriculation to the University of the Universe, or probably more understandably, getting your library card. And I talk about this in class each year. This is your library card of the cosmos. Perhaps you were a tiny child when you first got your library card. Maybe it was a rite of passage. Maybe you were in kindergarten or first grade or just starting to become literate and becoming able to know your letters. And maybe your mom or babysitter or someone brought you to the library and you got your first, let's hold up something like a library card. We'll make it a lasagna. Like you got your first library card and like, wow. And then they take you into the library and you look around and you see all of these rows of books everywhere. And you're like, wow. And they're like, yeah, kid, with your library card, you can check out any one of these books that you want to. Wow. But they're like, you know what though? There's a lot of stuff here that is above your reading comprehension level. Your words are not going to understand. And also there's a lot of stuff here that you're a tiny child and you should not be exposed to yet. And some of that might be sexually explicit content. You're not sexually mature yet. You should know about that. And some of it might also be stuff about war, genocide, very bad things that have happened in history. You're too young to process that or comprehend or contextualize it yet. So let's bring you, little tiny child with your little library card. Let's bring you over to the kids section. And in the kids section, there's like beanbag chairs and a little desk and stuffed animals and your first books that you can read that are C-Spot run and whatever, Curious George the Monkey or whatever. I'm trying to think of some of these kids' books. The Bernstein Bears. And yes, everyone, it is Bernstein. Bernstein, not Berenstain or any other of these nonsense concoctions. I just don't even get me. That will be a rant. Don't even get me going. But all of those books are appropriate to your tiny little ability, your reading comprehension skills, your ability to sound out letters, and your ability to comprehend things. And then as you master those concepts and grow your consciousness, you gain access to the rest of the library. So the library here is analogous to your DNA. And the librarian who guides you over to the kids section is analogous to your crown chakra. So now we talk about Christ consciousness, the indigo chakra, and the beautiful relationship and partnership with your violet chakra. These two are in partnership. And when in previous lessons and years, I would say they're married, but people would be like, oh, like marriage is defined by like friction and conflict and power dynamic struggles and disharmonic disrespect of each other's boundaries. And I'm like, oh, my shoulders go down. Now, in your very screwed up world with a lot of Antichrist and Torquemada energy, maybe that's what marriage and partnership has been between human beings. But the way it's supposed to be is respectful partnership. So let's talk in ideals. All right. Christ and crown as respectful partners. So I've also said to you today, and very accurately will continue to reaffirm, that Christ is fallible, doesn't know everything, doesn't see everything. Or let's say this, there is such a thing as whatever, not 20/20 vision, but partial vision. But when you get up to the level of the crown, it is infallible and it is 20/20 vision. And if there is a dynamic power structure between Christ and the crown, it is that the crown is in charge. This is the crown. This is at the level of your DNA and your connection to singularity, or what humans call 0 point, or the origin and destination of all consciousness. If there was ever a conversation or a conflict between the library card and the librarian would win every day. And it's not a battle, like, on guard, we're married and we're fighting. That's what people think, that's what marriage is. But I'm like, no, we're supposed to work together to make life. That is ostensibly why people get married. Although people are like, no, Aurora, people get married today for money, power, status, a nice house. I'm like, no, wipe it all away. People are supposed to get married because they love each other. They want to make life. And they want to make life, like, in terms of physical procreation, making new people, but they also want to build a life together, to own a house, to own property, perhaps to build a business, to accumulate wealth, to create something of stability in the world that you can then inhabit. That is the essence of what your energetic anatomical structures are doing. Your Christ chakra is receiving abstract waveform energy and is interpreting it as physical five senses reality that you call your human reality. And your higher dimensional abstract viewpoint is receiving energy from, or input from, the cosmic level of pure truth. And these two viewpoints are supposed to synthesize and harmonize into a beautiful expression of reality that is balanced and accurate. And the stuff that your mind and your eye of time manifests or generates or coalesces into reality is directly related to all of the other chakras on the body. So everything from your red chakra in your base of your spine and your pelvis, through your reproductive organs at the orange level, through your human intellect and ego, through your heart, through your authenticity, through your insight, library card, and then through your divine connection, that all of this energy comes and is centered and focused in the beam that comes out of your mind, your attention, your tendril of attention. It doesn't just touch on things and learn about things out there. It makes stuff happen. And so what we're not experiencing is a power struggle where, like, the male presence, the husband of Christ consciousness, like, well, I want to make this stuff happen. And then the female crown consciousness is like, no, I want to make this stuff happen. And then fight. Like, you imagine some kind of sitcom story or whatever, like, well, I want to build this over here in the house. And the wife is like, no, I want you to put up curtains over here. Like, this is all nonsense. That is not what is happening. That's like saying your heart is fighting your lungs and your body. That is not happening. In order to stay alive, your heart and your lungs work together. And especially if you want to run or do something like that, your heart is like, I'm pumping over here, and your lungs are like, I'm breathing over here, and they work together. So this is really important to understand reciprocity and the rapport and the loyalty that happens between these two levels of consciousness within your own body part and the larger dynamic. In the galaxy, you have a beautiful, benevolent, higher dimensional structure of networked consciousness known as Christ. Just like you've got something called the internet here, a bunch of computers connected together, get a bunch of people's minds connected together, known as Christ. But then you've also got the crown, the abstraction that directs all of this. And you do not have a power struggle. You do not have the sense of Christ being like, well, we want to do it our way. Snap with attitude. We're not going to listen to you. And then the higher dimensional crown being like, what are you doing? What's the matter you? What's wrong with you? Why aren't you listening? Oh, he's over here. She might need a hug. No, and then let's fight it out. That's what people think of a marriage is. No, it is a beautiful divine partnership that is joyfully, like I say, reciprocity, joyfully collaborating to be able to work together. And if there's ever a question about who is in charge, it will always defer to the crown because the crown is infallible and is directly connected to God, the divine presence. So energy, I got to get rid of this silly thing. Energy comes from God, the divine presence, circulates through the crown, which is your cosmic librarian, and then comes into the level of Christ, which is your teacher. And all of these things are aspects of you. But the power dynamic is never in a conflict or a struggle. The power dynamic is always in fine harmony. Hold on a second. I need to hug Cheeky. Done. That little pause. So with your energetic anatomy, there's never a conflict where your Christ chakra wants you to go down a particular time road or to look in a particular direction, to learn about a particular thing with the tendril of your attention, and where your crown is directing you in a different direction. That simply does not exist. So here's what does exist. I've spent too much time speaking in negatives today. Your higher dimensional anatomy is exactly like a compass. With a compass, you have the very, very finely calibrated needle that is super sensitive and very vulnerable. Like needles are easily breakable or bendable, and you have to protect them. So what you have around the very, very sensitive needle is the compass housing. The needle is your crown chakra. It is the needle of awareness, and it plays in the record of your life. And that's an old song that I've written. It's a good song. Listen to it. The compass housing is Christ, and it's supposed to be not only the Christ chakra and pineal gland healthy and functioning in your own body. It's also supposed to be the Christ protective force field around the whole planet. It's also supposed to be the Christ, the telepathic network, like in that sketch of all these different people in all these different places that are mentally sending out protective vibes to help you in your life. All of those things are supposed to be helping you to be able to be protected in your divine connection so that your GPS, God positioning system, can help you to know where divinity is. Because this central convergence point, this God place of singularity that is here, it's always shifting. Sometimes it is over here, and sometimes it is over here, and sometimes it is over here. And that's why you have to have this beautiful, accurate compass needle that tells you, look over here, now look over here, now look over here. And the pattern that the compass needle perceives is ever shifting. That's the, what I'm telling you, there's not a one size fits all maneuver. Be able to go from where you are and where you to where you need to be. Everybody has a unique path. So you cannot be like, well, I'm going to take that guy's template because he made it to enlightenment. And I'm just going to plop it onto my life. And then we're just going to follow all of those things. So you can't just follow a sense of rules, 613 or 10 commandments. You can't just imposter and imitate someone else who reached enlightenment because their journey doesn't take you where you're supposed to go. Like if your journey starts out in New York and you're trying to get to Los Angeles, you find the road to get there. But what if that guy is starting out in Paris? How can he get to your destination? Like these are two totally different origin points, two totally different routes that need to be taken to be able to return to or connect with the truth of your divinity. So every single person in the age of Aquarius especially has a unique pathway to be able to reach divinity. And that is also you as tiny baby sea turtles attempting to make it across the vulnerability area of the beach to make it to the ocean of consciousness, to make it to divinity. Every single one of these little guys has to take a unique pathway to get there. So the crown is incredibly sensitive. It's the most sensitive aspect of your anatomy, and it is your DNA. So your DNA, I've already described as a dynamic array, and also a bridge of light, a molecular connection between the world of physical matter and somatic cellular structure and the world of abstraction, pure potential, and narratives and stories, what you're going to experience there. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted because sometimes I hear Cheeky in the background there. So I'm just going to drink a little tea. You have to be protected from erroneous information, information overwhelm, or getting effed with, getting harmed in some way. So like this stuff right here, it really hurts your crown chakra, definitely. And being around not only the physical towers and hardware that emit this, but the people that create and emit this, and those that create this and this, can also really have a negative impact on the ability of your crown chakra and your DNA to correctly perceive the direction that will find divinity. So you're driving on a road, and maybe you're in a fog, and maybe your Christ chakra is like, I don't know where the F we are, and I can't see SHIT. But your crown chakra is like, don't worry, dear. I know exactly where we are. Listen to me, and I will guide you where we need to go. Now, when I say that, you're like, it's funny, because that kind of sounds like that religion that they made about that guy, where he's like, listen to me, and I'll guide you to where you need to go. So what are you supposed to do when it's like that guy who's supposed to guide you, or that consciousness or that level of being, doesn't know where they're going, or more accurately, is in a fog, like a frequency miasma, and can't see where you need to be on the road of life? And the answer is, you must use your highest dimensional connection, to be able to navigate where you're going. So the pineal gland is incredibly powerful in terms of inner vision. It is literally having an active and healthy pineal gland is how I have been able to see the patterns that I see, relate them through my physical form, and like interpret them as something that I can make into a painting or a musical composition. All of that is activity that is done with the pineal gland. But in this world, since 2020 or since 2019 or so, the signal miasma has been so bad that it's been very, very difficult to see and know on that level. But I haven't stopped going. What have I done? I use my crown to navigate. This is what's going on here. You're witnessing a shift of the power dynamic from everybody saying, listen to the Jesus man, listen to the Pope, listen to this external authority figure, listen to this, and that's going to guide you in the right direction. To now, you have to listen to a higher level of self to be able to guide you, because the Christ level of reality has either been hijacked or distorted, or is breached, is vulnerable, is polluted in some way. And it's an incredible disappointment to think that it can be polluted in some way. Because I'm like, I thought I had antivirus, hardware, software, and protection and encryption. I know. Just like on your phone or your computer, you're like, I thought I had all sorts of VPN, whatever, protection, blah, blah, blah. But somehow these hackers got in. Antichrist and satanics are like hackers. And they, I feel, have hacked the system or diluted or cut off the true presence of Christ. And now what you need to do is get to the crown level, supersede Christ, get to the level of the crown within your own body, so that way you can connect to true divine presence and know where you need to go. In the society that is known as Christ, that I'm familiar with, like where we came from, our origins, and hopefully we will reconstruct things, exemplifying the best parts of this. One of the exemplary characteristics is that Christ does not compete with itself. So we got a whole vast array of Christs out there. So I say this in my notes also. Like when people are in their human development, they raise their energy up to this level and they're like, dun dun, boom, 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 boom. I am Christ. Like they think that this is the end of the journey. And that's what it says in the See Spot Run book. Like you get to the library and the librarian is like, here's your first book. And you're learning how to read. And you're like, I am Christ. And then you put down the book. You're like, dun dun. And it's like, read page 2. And page 2 says like, and so are all of these other people and organisms and blades of grass. And you're like, oh, I'm in a Christ network. All right. So only reading part of the information is very erroneous. Reading information out of order is very erroneous. Many people are in a state of vulnerability when they partially activate their Christ chakra and they're able to see some of reality, but they are not able to correctly read, contextualize, or interpret what they're reading. And this is what I mean when I say you have to be guided by your inner librarian who will bring you to information that is at your reading level, at your comprehension level. Because if you read information out of order or stuff that is way above your head, then you can come up with a very, not only erroneous, but a very poisonously erroneous foundation of how you expect reality to be structured, including what we call, in human terms, megalomania. A megalomaniac is someone who thinks, I'm Christ, none of you. Just me, none of you. And that is not accurate. But also, please do not fall into the trap of saying, everything that I see is Christ. Because not everything. Because Torquemada is not Christ. And this is very, very challenging when you are a young person and you are being presented with truth of the reality, truth of the cosmic reality. And you look around and you're like, some of this stuff is Christ, but some of this stuff is not Christ. How can this be? All these different things. Like I know on the human anthropomorphic level, it is very difficult for you to know what is true. That's why the best thing that you can do is just hold all of your questions and concerns until you are able to activate and get to the abstract, non-anthropomorphic level. Be like driving on the road, can't see very well through the fog. You know there's a sign up there, but you don't know exactly what it says. You can't really read it. Before you make any giant pronouncements about the shape of reality, you should get there and actually read the sign. And when you can actually read, then you should make your assessments about reality. This is why there's not a conflict between this viewpoint and this viewpoint, because this viewpoint knows that it doesn't see everything clearly. It's like, I'm doing the best I can from my present level of clarity, and I don't see everything clearly. This is how you can also know, how can the Christ network have been hijacked or vulnerabilities exploited when it can anticipate the future? You can see the future. Like, couldn't you see this happening? Like, this is me talking to Christ. Be like, couldn't you see this happening? Like, why did you not do something about this? And apparently, Christ could not see this happening. All right, because I have to presume goodness and benevolence. Like, would have stopped things if he could have, but he didn't see it happening. And of course, like I have actually a lot of things to say. Like if Christ were to come here and stand before me right now, I'd be like, oh, good, you. So great to see you again. I have a lot of things to say. We have a lot to talk about. And that is called having a relationship. When you, of course, this is not like traditional marriage, you know, where I'm talking about the failures of your human realm, but I'm talking about like when you are in relationship, when you have your Christ chakra and your crown chakra really in relationship, there is not a conflict and there is this authentic sharing. So there's not a competition. So one of the things that I was trying to portray, and I didn't finish that sentence, was there's not a competition between these various different aspects of Christ. This crystal has many different facets, and all of these facets combine to create the totality and the holistic presence. And all the facets are necessary and correct, and all the facets add up as necessary puzzle pieces to the whole. So in the Christ network, even before perfecting the crown and the connection to the crown, this network respects one another. In that little drawing that I shared with you, all of those clustered anthropomorphic forms or people or levels of you, respect yourself. You're not like, shut up, I'm in charge. Like all of those levels of self are actually not only are not in conflict and not in competition, but are in collaboration. And that's what it's like when you're in a band. Like you're not in conflict, you're not in total self-centeredness, you're working together to make beautiful music. So if you've ever been in a band, you're like, hooray, I want to sing. I want people to hear my voice. And that is great. You're here with hundreds of other people and they also want to sing and they also want to have their moment in the spotlight. So you are respectful of them. You allow them their performance. Sometimes you play, sometimes you rest. And with the panoply or wide array of Christ consciousnesses in the galaxy, you have all of these different experts that are expert from their viewpoint. And not everybody is human shaped. You have to comprehend this as well. Just as in your own world, there are rock shrimp, dolphins, and redwood trees, and beautiful little dogs, and they're all part of Christ. In the larger galactic world, not everybody has a body that is shaped like this. There are all sorts of different forms of life, and they are not in competition with each other. Or a better way of saying it is kind of like if you think about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who's the best guitarist of all time? Is it Jimi Hendrix? Is it Prince? Eric Clapton? Like who's going to be up there? And then you have like the rock and roll battle of the band, the showdown to see who's best. That is not what Christ is like. In Christ, all of these amazing artists express their uniqueness and their greatness, and it all adds up to this amazing totality. And the totality would be flawed if one of those presences was not there, and everybody harmonically integrates what they're able to share from their individual self to contribute to the whole. And you want to sound good on your own, but you also want the whole to sound good. And you would not want to sacrifice the beautiful music of the entire symphony of many millennia and many, many vast different levels of life, just so you could solo a little bit more, all right? And let's also talk about recognition, like in Christ, when you have like one person that does something really awesome, you're like, good job, pretty clap. That guy did something awesome. You know, and no one's like, never say I do anything awesome. He gets all the attention. That does not happen. That does not happen. There is mutual respect, mutual celebration. Like I'm going to talk about this like it's a perfect relationship because this is what it's like. This is the type of people that are there. When you are also like really good at what you do, like I don't know if you guys ever experienced or embodied this, but when you're really good at what you do, you're not in competition with other people. I will use myself as an example. I am really good at what I do with these drawings. Like I know what I'm doing. I know how things should be shaped. I know the level of complexity that I can do. And I'm like, yep, I know how the colors fit together. I know how these things fit together. And I just like, I know that I'm good at what I do. And I'm not in competition with other people. And other people make other types of artwork. I'm like, that is cool. Good job. You did your thing. And this is my thing. And I do my thing over here. And it's almost incomprehensible because in this world, like I've actually been in a lot of group shows and co-ops and things with other artists. And I'm always amazed because there's sometimes a thing called artistic competition, where someone is like, well, how come you got in that show and I didn't get in that show? Or how come you sold that painting and I didn't sell my painting? And they're comparisons with other people and who's better and who's this and that. And none of that ever made sense to me because I'm always like, I'm just doing my thing very clearly, knowing what I need to do in life. And I don't compare myself to other people. And I know what I'm doing is great. And then when you do your thing is great. Like if you paint flowers, like that is your thing. I am not painting like roses. Like that is not my thing. And take it, do your thing. Each person masters what is important to them and expresses it. And there's not really a way to be able to compare. Again, the journey of each baby sea turtle to get from where you hatch to your successful reintegration with the ocean of consciousness is unique. How can you look at these different paths and be like, that baby sea turtle did it better than this guy over here? They are all unique. There's not really a way to compare. So I also want to talk about reading a person as a book. When I talk about you getting your library card of the universe and you're able to become a student in universal consciousness and you start to learn about things, what you're really doing is reading DNA, reading time. So in order to read, you have to learn the letters, learn the alphabet, and you have to learn the syntax of the grammar, the order in which things are arranged, and then have reading comprehension, which is the correct interpretation of what you have read. And like what I was talking about last week with oh, I'll get to it, don't worry. I'm gonna refer to what I was talking about last week. Uh so sorry, like sometimes I have so many things Jenga towered in my brain. I'm like, I have conflicts of all the things I want to get to my mouth at this moment. The whew, let's start from the beginning and try again. When you can read a person like a book, what I'm talking about is being able to see every aspect of their soul. So as you begin to awaken your higher faculties, you have unconditional love, which is the foundation. And I have that picture too that I can show you. The foundation of unconditional love within which the higher faculties nestle. Unconditional love coming out from your heart, that's love tone, love tone. And then these guys are higher faculties, your Christ chakra and your crown chakra. And there's an interplay between all of this because you have to have a lot of love, a lot of cosmic acceptance of the information that you perceive when this stuff is activated up here. So as you start to activate your higher faculties, and you start to perceive things about yourself and other people, you start to read DNA. And reading DNA doesn't just mean like, I'm reading this person's DNA and I can tell they've got brown eyes or whatever. This is the shape of their elbows. That is actually the most pedestrian of what you can see about a person. You can read a person's soul energy. You can see all of the different things that are clustered around them, like in that first picture, all the different aspects of self that cluster around this central epicenter of your consciousness in this moment. And you can also see everything a person has ever done. So once you start to become literate, you start to read people, and you have to make sure that you are interpreting what you read correctly. So people in this class, like you might already have awakened faculties, and you might already have experienced this. Sometimes people have in their childhood, sometimes people already have awakened higher faculties, and they might perceive things that are socially inappropriate, and they might have adults in their life teach them not to use their higher faculties because they say, you're not allowed to think those things. You're not allowed to see and know those things, not only in the sense of interpreting something as being devilish or satanic or inappropriate, like you're the devil, you have higher faculties or gifts, like that's very inquisitorial, right? Very Torquemada, but more in the sense of, what you're seeing is inappropriate. Like maybe you're calling out a social dynamic. Maybe you're like, maybe you can see like that your high school principal is an alcoholic or something like that. And you're like, mommy, the principal so-and-so is an alcoholic. And she'd be like, you're not allowed to say that about so-and-so, the authority figure, like go to your room now. And what children learn is like, oh, like I can't see and know and read and interpret these things about the people around me. I'm doing something wrong. I better close that eye. And that way I can just bumble through life like everyone else, pretending not to see and know these things. All right. So you guys might have had that experience. Other people like sometimes also have an experience of where haven't really had activated higher faculties. And then as you start to activate your higher faculties, you start to learn like too much about people. And I definitely remember what it felt like to me. Like I didn't go through those levels of development. I came here as Aurora in adulthood, but with my higher faculties fully activated, like the moment that I came in here. And I'm walking around human culture, which is very screwed up, by the way. And I could perceive and read all these things about the people around me. And I was kind of like, whoa, that doesn't seem that good. Whoa, that doesn't seem that good either. I could see things about their intentions. I was like, that guy, like, he's a bad person. I was shocked. I was shocked and appalled. I'm telling you, I dropped my opera glasses. No, but really, where I come from, people don't lie. I come from the Christ network. People don't lie. People are in collaboration. People are reciprocally loving. When I first came here and I perceived things about people and their dynamics and what they were doing, I was like, oh, that cannot be. That is not right. That's me. You're like, that's not right. I just walked around a lot for the first couple of years that I was here being like, that is not right. I don't know if you can imagine, like, I don't have a good analogy, but just like me, like I'm the baby duckling and I just came into this world and I'm like, that's wrong. that's wrong, that's wrong. I didn't have anyone to really like share this with, but I'd be like, that is wrong, and that is wrong. And then I would watch TV and I'd be like, that is very wrong. And I was like, is this a joke? Like that has got to be a joke because it's so wrong. I think I told you about like my first exposure to some human TV shows like Sex in the City and Seinfeld. I watched those shows and I was like, that is wrong. I'm like, that cannot be real. That cannot be real. Then it was real. And I'm like, that is wrong. And then, I learned so many other things. So basically, I had to learn how to integrate the accurate information that was coming to me through my higher senses. And once I learned to accept the truth of what I was seeing, I could then create an effective game plan to respond to all of the very many things that are wrong, which you now like can laugh about these things, but to me they were a shocking revelation because I've never experienced things like this before, but it is, whatever, very normal for the people here in this time and place. There's a lot of things that are wrong. And you might also like feel you might relate to that because although you might not be a walk-in, you might have come here as an elevated form of innocence and higher dimensional presence. And you might have walked around as a tiny child and been like, that is wrong. Like maybe you went to church and maybe you felt like the things that they were telling you in church were inherently wrong and incorrect. And I do know people that have shared with me about like being a 3-year-old or a kindergartner in church and they're in there, like their baby church lessons, like they kind of, they bring it to the kids' room. They tell you all these things about the universe and being like, that's not true. And like the little kid comes like that's not true. Be like, go to the corner. It's like, shut up, kid. This is very inappropriate. And then what do you learn? Like you learn not to say those things and maybe even not to feel those things. So the journey of awakening your higher senses is a journey that requires an enormous amount of self-love, to accept and celebrate yourself, to be like, I know what I am feeling and sensing and seeing about the world around me, and to integrate that into your behavioral response. But and also, as you're moving through the world, you're just starting to learn what the big picture is. So you might read a person, but you might not get every page of the book. And you have to learn like, oh, I read this about this person, but then there's still more over here. That's the fallibility of Christ at the anthropomorphic level. When you're reading and interpreting through your human filter, you're fallible. You can make mistakes. So just put that one, like chalk it up or put it under your belt or whatever you do. Remember that as you're moving through your levels of development. And please reserve a lot of your judgments and pronouncements until you see the big picture. Because when I talk about being able to read a person like a book, when you are really literate, you do see a person's entire life, their entire chakra system, all of their multidimensional and parallel presences, all of the things they've been through, and even the anticipatory potentials of their future. You see everything contextualized, meaning you do see their huge embarrassments and their huge flaws, but you also see what gave rise to those flaws, and then also how they responded to them. And also you can see not everybody has the same flaws or embarrassments. Like some people might at some point have ended up, whatever, strung out on drugs, literally in the gutter, but not everybody has a low point like that. And I think it's important to recognize that people have wildly unique life experiences. But it's also important to say, don't have the full story on a person when you just see that chapter of them strung out on drugs and living in the gutter, because there can be a redemption chapter that happens after that. But you can't expect that or presume that potential exists in everyone, because if you did, you would have make yourself vulnerable to a lot of things that are like, I'm evil right now, but I have the potential to become non-evil. Give me another chance. Hey man, give me another chance. And I have very limited capacities at this point for a lot of the hey man, give me another chance, because a lot of these guys are sweat hogs. Like they know that they are doing stuff wrong. They know that they did the wrong math. They know that they did poorly, and they're kind of just throwing the game. And then they're going to ask for another chance. And I'm like, no, actually, not required to give you another chance endlessly. And what you guys need to know is, as you're reading the big picture book, not just one person's life, but you're reading the book of everybody. You're like, you know something? I gave this guy another chance in this layer of reality, a higher dimensional, otherworldly layer of reality where they were a very, very effed up person. And they were like, just give me another chance, man. Like, okay, great. Why don't you incarnate on Earth? So you have another chance. This is their another chance. And when they screw it up here intentionally or carelessly, and they'd be like, hey man, give me another chance. Like, this is your another chance. And no, you don't get another chance. So that's also a little bit along the lines of my critique of the worldview from Ashayana Dean, who told people about fallen worlds. Like there's a world where everybody F's up and then they kind of go down the stairs and they fall. And then they're over here and then they do another bad idea. And then they're over here and then they do a bad idea, like continually like Homer Simpson, like falling down the stairs, ka-chunka, 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 with the implication that there's just an endless number of stairs to fall down. But you're never going to get to the last stair and just be in the basement. Guess what, guys? This is the last stair. You're in the basement. It's like, this is as bad as it gets. Maybe that's a positive thing. Be like, good job, everyone. This is as bad as it gets. But what I'm really trying to portray is like, you gave everybody a second chance. You gave everybody the remedial learning opportunities. And then a lot of them still messed up very, very badly. And there is not another chance for them to experience. And that is why I have come here with not only the concept of entropy, but the pathway to entropy, because otherwise you would have these guys just floating in what becomes a hell realm, which is endless friction and no possibility for either redemption or resolution. And that is really a terrible torment to the individuals and to the fabric of space-time to experience that. So entropy is much, much better than just kind of like laying on the floor in the basement with nothing else that you can do for the rest of eternity. Reading the book and interpreting things correctly. When you... Now I want to rant because I'm starting to get into the objective materialist scientists who created not only this stuff, but specifically this stuff here, because they do not read correctly. They are not literate, but they are typing away on a typewriter, writing books when they are not literate. So that's what all of this DNA technology is. Things like CRISPR and various forms of genetic modification, splicing, amplifications, all of these things. These are illiterates that are using words, which are the building blocks of reality, which is what DNA is or are, and making the most nonsensical sentences. And you would be like, well, what do I care? Like, to type away on your typewriter random keys and make random words. What do I care? And the answer is you care a lot because this. Because your guitars affect each other. And when they are typing away randomly on their typewriter, making a lot of, nonsensical words, actually has a giant impact on that they shouldn't be connecting with and manifesting reality through their randomness, but that dark magic, which is really what technology is empowering them to have an impact on reality. So what you're supposed to do is cultivate your senses naturally. Cultivate the love that is in your heart so that you can have your higher faculties on top of there. Hold your opinions until you get to a point of 20/20 vision and divine connection. Be able to read situations and organisms accurately and interpret what you're seeing, and then create genetic structures that are accurate and life-affirming and that respect the fabric of space-time and reality so that we can all keep on being here and having a fabric of space-time and reality that we can live within. And what these objective materialist scientists are doing is they're like, I'm not going to cultivate myself to the level of love. I'm not going to learn about things naturally. I'm going to invent a whole bunch of technology. I'm not going to learn anything about myself. I'm not going to learn and grow as a person. I'm not going to admit if I'm wrong. I'm going to express a huge amount of hubris, like nanny poo poo energy, and I'm going to put together whatever DNA concoctions I want to put together. I'm going to put them everywhere. You're going to have to deal with it. That is very, very bad behavior. So Antichrist is not just the hardware and software and technology that's deployed in your world. It's also the attitude. That attitude of complete disrespect for the totality of what you are connected to and living within is Antichrist. And Christ is, to complement that or to speak in positives, the beautiful recognition of the connectedness of consciousness. Because when you get up to higher levels of abstract crown-centered truth, you're like, consciousness is all connected. But this is not the same as the erroneous simplification or reductionist truth, like, it's all me. No, Torquemada is not you. Although you are all connected. Consciousness is all connected. DNA affects one another. I'm not going to get in trouble by saying that, but not everybody is the same. Not everybody is you. Not everybody belongs here. And not everybody should be given an equal voice in the band. Some people in the band or musicians in the band should be given a triangle, like a little percussion triangle, and be told like, okay, you just wait for your moment to ding your triangle. It's not time yet. And like the truth is, they have no notes in the score. They're like waiting. They're like, maybe I'm going to play now. No, not playing it. Just rest. Just quiet. Don't play. Do you do your job by just being quiet? They are not meant to have a voice in the band. And that is for the most diseased consciousness. They're not supposed to make a sound. They are not supposed to sing. They are not supposed to have a voice. They're supposed to be quiet. And when I talk about this in Path of Light, I talk about some photons as being feelers that have reflection off of either matter or consciousness and return back to the origin, bringing back a narrative story. Like, I went away and I had experiences and now I return and I come back with my experiences. But some photons just go on their journey and just keep on going, like, goodbye forever. Like, kind of like stand there with your triangle, waiting for the moment when you're supposed to play a note. And like, they never play a note for the entire level of existence in reality. They're a photon that's just like going along, experiencing nothing, talking to no one, seeing nothing, and that's their job, because some things are like not supposed to be in existence. So when you get up to the higher levels of consciousness, you come to levels of acceptance, heart-centered acceptance. Some stuff is supposed to exist, some stuff is not supposed to exist. And that goes beyond anthropomorphic whimsy. Like, I'm not just like, I don't like your face, kid, you're not supposed to exist. I want you guys to know, though I present it in such hilarious terms, in my work as Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I am incredibly disciplined. I am not merely presenting ego whimsy. Like, some people can bribe their way into heaven. I like those people. I'm going to be like, oh, kid, I'm going to energize you. I like you. You've got moxie, but not you. I don't like your face. I'm going to send you to entropy. It is not a matter of my personal convenience or opinion. It is according to the harmonic truth of reality. So I am very, very clear in the math that I use for this, and I present that so that I hope you can know. At a certain point, you will be similarly literate to know beyond any kind of doubt what is supposed to be happening, and then to act towards that perfection. And you're not going to be like, in these levels here, the anthropomorphic levels where you don't have 20/20 vision, people experience self-doubt. They're like, well, maybe it's this. Maybe this is right. But maybe this is right. Maybe this guy's good. Maybe this guy's bad. Maybe this should happen. Maybe this shouldn't happen. Philosophy. Philosophy on the human level is like an endless spiral mind F that people use to continually confuse themselves. And you don't get out of that level of reality by using rationality or words or the limited mind that brought you into that level of confusion. You must remain in silence and wait until you see clarity. And when you see clarity, you learn how to interpret it, and then you apply that to the rest of reality. So when you start to activate your Christ consciousness and your higher senses, It is like seeing a tapestry. Time is a tapestry of interwoven causality events. When you look at the front of a tapestry, it's like looking at the front of my dress, you see an image, intentional end result. But when you look at the backside of the tapestry, you see all of the ways in which the threads are connected together. Like things are tied together, there's knots, there's all sorts of curious things that happen. You can't see it in the front. Like in the front, you're like, well, the purple thread ends over here and then it starts over here. But when you look at the underside of the tapestry, you're like, oh, look, there's this connection that goes from this area over here to this area over here. Causality. This is why you have to hold your opinions until you're able to activate your librarian of the universe, see abstractly, and know beyond the levels of anthropomorphic interpretation what is actually happening. Because these are not matters of whimsy or convenience. These are actual structures that are, there's load-bearing structures that have to happen in order for things to happen. So this purple is connected to this purple through a series of load-bearing structures where it is necessary for all these things to happen for the entirety of reality to be upheld. This is the cosmic Christ viewpoint. It is not a wimpy viewpoint that's like, oh, I'd love to help you, but I can't. Like, you know, you have to go through all sorts of bad things and just watching you while you suffer. No, not at all. It is the viewpoint of being able to see the entire time tapestry on an abstract mathematical level and to see the overt events above the surface and also the hidden implied connections between those events and to recognize the necessity of all of these things. And time is a dynamic that the potentials of the future change and shift as you are experiencing the present now. So there is and are some real considerations about time wars, the vulnerability of the Christ network in terms of being precog and you can see the future, but sometimes there might be something that comes in that you couldn't have presumed or anticipated because it is new in the moment. So I've talked a lot about like the crappy time technology that was deployed on Mars. Homer Simpson's time toaster, you know, I use very silly pop culture references, but it's similar to that. People who are flying blind and who just mess with time. And when you give time manipulative technology to unevolved consciousnesses, they make time toasters and they do stuff like the Philadelphia experiment and other levels of reality distortion that's not amelioration, but is creating death and decrepitude. And you can't always anticipate that. Just like my lasagna is a spontaneous thing that's like before 2001, there was going to be a particular future. And then I flying rainbow lasagna, and then all of a sudden, all of these new futures were created. When you give firecrackers to children, when you give time distortion technology to irresponsible, crappy idiots, they project themselves into the future and into the past and do all sorts of things that can mess up the future, that can blindside or surprise even an experienced precog network like Christ. I also think that there is something in the vulnerabilities of the Christ network that is innate to true intelligence, wanting to learn. That I think that just like you put out rat traps and you bait the trap, put something delicious on there like peanut butter that rats really like, and then they go into the trap and then they get electrocuted or decapitated. That is what I think happened to the Christ network. So the Christ network is, of course, created of individuals, but it has a collective consciousness that is highly intelligent and highly devoted to problem solving, much like me. Yeah, like a lot of the same characteristics that you sense in me are the characteristics of the Christ network. I'm a part of that. Intelligent, problem solving, fixing, wanting to know, and similar to the body's immune system. Like I've told you that the danger of your tendril of awareness is your attention. What you touch on, you're eating a little bit of it. So if I want to learn about a butterfly, I'm going to touch on the butterfly with my mind. I'm going to eat a little bit of it and be like, oh, that's what butterfly tastes like. So if I wanted to mess up the entire price network, I would put out something that is evil and erroneous and very like sticky or infectious. Be like, oh, here's a weird thing. You're going to want to touch on this and learn about it. And as soon as the mind touches on it, that there would be a type of infestation or connection that would inundate and overwhelm the mind and make it difficult to regain clarity and maybe difficult to break away from. I think that this is what happened. Similar to, exploits and computer viruses, it doesn't seem that relevant now, but there was a time when people first started having home computers and the internet was in its infancy, when people didn't really know about computer viruses and they were largely unprotected, and you had to be very, very safe about which websites you went to because you didn't know if you would click on something, if you would get a virus in your computer, and then it could be a whole big problem. It appears now as if there is more innate protection in the hardware and software that we experience, but also that could also be an illusion because it appears that there are still ways that the your individual systems can be hacked, exploited, or vulnerabilities can be created that others can get into your files and access your stuff without your explicit permission. But it used to be that you had to be super paranoid and be like, I don't know, don't send me any weird links. I don't want to click on any links and get any kind of download. You have to be very cautious about your downloads and things like that. But now I don't worry about that as much. So again, I'm not sure if I'm just fooling myself or if there really is not the same level of danger as in the past. So computer scientists, maybe you should speak up and tell me out if I'm just fooling myself. But gather around children. There used to be a time when you would be like, don't send me any downloads because I don't know if it's safe. I don't want to go to that website because I don't know if I'm going to get my computer screwed up by doing that. I think that Christ, the larger supercomputer, got screwed up by some kind of connection or erroneous download or something that incapacitated it. And I don't know if it was a total devastation or a partial devastation, but like with your computer system, like if it's totally devastated, you're like, I get a blank screen, I get nothing, right? But if it's partially devastated, that is also like makes your computer pretty much worthless because you're like, I don't know, is anything going to work on my computer? Do my emails work? Do my website things work? Do my personal files work? Maybe they don't work, or maybe some things work, but only partially. What we have right now is either a complete cutting off from Christ consciousness, which would be like the computer is dead, or it's possible that the computer is disheveled and vulnerable and made no longer functional. Can't trust the information that is coming from that apparatus or from that level of reality. And that's a huge issue because that level of reality is supposed to be your teacher and your guide. And if you don't have that, it is very, very effing difficult to get down the road of life. And that is why I literally had to invent flying rainbow lasagna because I'm in a higher dimensional reality. I'm like, if I don't do something, no one's going to get down the road of life. And it is absolutely incredibly important for people to get down the road of life. So a question has arrived over here. Let me squint and read and say what this says. Okay. Thank you for being here. Question is, were you telepathically able to connect with Yeshua before? And are you talking about the 12 DNA Yeshua? And also ask the question, can you see the virus, the corrupted program? Okay, so I am good pals with Yeshua. And I'm saying it in like the most silly and casual way. Like I totally love and I'm devoted to that person. Can't even say it without crying a little bit because I love that person so much. And that person is a wonderful, amazing presence. I want to say they are easy to love, but it's like just imagine the most beautiful soul, the most beautiful face, the most beautiful activities, the most trustworthy, and a person who loves you so much and that you know that they would always do the most for you, the most incredible friendship, the most incredible family, the most incredible love and care for you. That person is an amazing person. All right. And so, yeah, totally. You can tell that I really love and miss that person a lot. And I can't even really like be as authentic as I would like to, like it's inappropriate here on YouTube or whatever. Yeah, exactly. You totally get it. It's not with any joy that I tell you about the destruction of the Christ consciousness network or of the presumed death or dismemberment of that person or their incapacitation or if they got a mind virus or something like that. Like, it's terrible to think about that. But you ask about 12 DNA Yeshua. Yes. So how I perceive and describe that person, I see him as the perfected potential of humans within that moment. So, the challenges that he faced 2,000 years ago are different than the technological challenges that you face here now, but he faced a lot of effing challenges. We're talking about the Roman Empire. We're talking also about like the, I want to say Judaic Empire, but like the Judaic power structure at the time that was severely corrupt, and that really I define it as satanic from the beginning. All of the things about animal sacrifice at the temple, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin, their power structure, all of the religious fanatics of his time and their motivations, their egregores, their ways of doing things. Like, he faced a lot of corrupt technology of that time, and faced it incredibly well, and was literally the shining example in that time of the group, how to fulfill your potential as a human being. Like, you want to know what is it like to be the best? There he is. He's right there. He's the best. And that's why it's so devastating when they come forward with this story about the crucifixion, which is like, basically, oh yeah, we took your best. We destroyed him, folded, spindled, and mutilated that guy. Like, that's what we did to your best. And that's Antichrist. And it is meant to kind of like bring us away from that. So your question is, can I see the virus and the corrupted program? And my answer is a big fat yes. That is part of my job. And also, so the stuff that went wrong with Christ, whatever Christ touched upon and got infected into him, it, them, I have had to build immunity to and fight against. And I have done an awesome job of it. So I will definitely take the credit and do self-celebration, because I want you also to know that there is an enormous amount of hope. The Christ network might have gotten this disease and might have been like fully or partially destroyed by the horrors of that disease, but I did not get destroyed by the disease. And this is really what happened in 2019 or 2020. The protective envelope around our world failed. The protective benevolent society that should be protecting me failed. And all of these bad pathogens got to me. And at first it was like, things are not looking very good for Aurora and for the flying rainbow lasagna, but I was not destroyed. And they tried to destroy me many, many times. And each time, flying rainbow lasagna, the greatest of unlikelihoods happened. And I was able to create new events, create effective responses to their attempts to destroy me, and create antibodies. And that is literally my job. I'm not just flying rainbow lasagna. I'm like a pasta factory, creating new pasta shapes in reality. And I was able to effectively respond to the thing that actually incapacitated or destroyed the Christ consciousness network. And that is very positive and good news. So I also would like for you to know that even if, and this is a difficult like reality to look at, even if Christ was destroyed, just like, it's very sad and devastating, but if it's gone, please know that I am here and that I contain the vestigial fragments of that origin and also the upgrades of lasagna, and that Christ can be created from this as a starting off point. That is the upgraded, updated, more capacitated, less vulnerable version of Christ. And that you don't have to be always in the grief of loss of the things that are no longer here, but that you can be in the celebration of what is here and the celebrated anticipation of what we can build going forward. So I do not consider this to be a mythology of a return of something that has been destroyed or devastated, but a renewal or a creation from the beginning using best characteristics of what once was, and then also adding new stuff on top of that. And this is, Christ is cosmic law enforcement. I am cosmic law enforcement. Think of Christ as like these amazing, genuinely uncorrupted, policemen or, federal agents that are doing their real job, that aren't, working for an evil regime, and that they really do go around protecting the innocent, restoring balance, making sure that life continues, protecting God, protecting divinity, and that the whole entire police department got wiped out. But I'm going to start a new police department. And I'm going to make sure that this one doesn't get wiped out, and that the problems of the past are not recreated into the future. And also, a lot of what I'm doing with my flying ring lasagna stuff here and now is destroying in an anticipatory fashion the things that are the seeds of evil that are planted now that would proliferate forward if I did not stop them. And a lot of it has to do with this and the scientists who create this, because genetic distortions and things that are aberrations and mutations of this moment do proliferate into the future. And this is, I've talked about, the concept of like the gray aliens coming forward as a result of the different genetic modification experiments at this time, fictionally. I love my fictional stories here. And also many other space races that through time distortion technology and the harvesting of genetic materials like sperm and ova from this time of reality to create really genetic monstrosities and aberrations that become what you know as space races that appear to be in your future, but are really your descendants. It's complex time language. So thank you for like doing your mental backbends to be with me on this perception here. But those do not have to be experienced realities. Because I'm telling you, what I could see from who I am as Aurora, the galactic presence, lasagnaing in here, as I am an avatar. I am an avatar. I am the distillation of Aurora that is on this higher dimensional level, that is a multifaceted presence into this particular body. And I could see and sense in coming into this body, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of effed up SHIT that's going to happen in the future if I don't do something about it. So my response when I first came here was to dance about it. And people are like, dance about it? Like, you're stupid. I'm like, dancing. Like, I'm not stupid. Because when you do this genetic dance, it has impact on reality. And it had such a profound impact on reality, they literally tried to eradicate me. And I'm like, nope, you're not going to eradicate me. And thank you very much for trying to, destroy me. And now you gave me every motivation and impetus to destroy you instead. So I can anticipate something that's going to try to destroy me in the future. And I'm like, oh, I got to stop that person from being in existence. I can stop them here today. Like, whatever, today is Wednesday. If I know somebody's going to destroy me on Friday, like, I don't have to wait for Friday. I don't have to wait for them to come out with whatever, like a machete or whatever, a spear, and try to hurt me. I'm like, no, I'm going to destroy you right now, because it's inevitable that on Friday you're going to try to screw me up or destroy me in some way. And that's big stuff. And when I do that work, in many ways, I am not justifying myself to people that have a linear viewpoint of reality, because you'd be like Aurora, like, what's your effing problem? Like, why are you destroying these things? I'm like, because they're going to be a problem. They're going to be a problem, and you can't see it yet because you can't see the future, but I can see the future, and I can see the problem that they're going to cause for me and you and everyone. So I definitely am in age of self-responsibility, because I got to take responsibility for what I'm doing. Like, I can see the road signs that are happening up there, and I'm like, I am going to turn the car because we are going to crash if we don't do that. And you might be in the bus with me, and you're like, why are you driving like this? And I'm like, because there is some bad stuff up there, and we cannot experience that bad stuff. And I take responsibility for the driving of my personal car and the impact that I'm having on the rest of reality. But you guys have to know, like, in your present levels of literacy, you might not be able to see and sense and know what is happening, what is coming, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And you might have to just like hold all questions till the end of the tour. Like, wait, Aurora, like, where are you going? What is going on? What are you doing? And be like, don't worry, guys, I'm doing the right thing, but you just might not be able to see it yet. But I don't want you to think that you're a passenger in your life. Like, you're totally empowered in your own life. But when you look at me and what I'm doing as, kind of like planetary lasagna, you might be like, what is she doing? Be like, don't worry, this is important. Okay, so wait. And the same question person is asking, so now you can't find him? Yeah, so you're asking about my connection to Christ, Yeshua, and also the entire cosmic galactic Christ. I have not been able to talk to that beautiful level of reality since the end of 2019, early 2020. All right. That's a very, very long time to have dead silence on the phone. Very, very long time. And especially when that is cosmic law enforcement, like that is backup, with the cops, when you're like, we got a robbery in progress, we're gonna need to sit back up here, Roger, over, click. And you hear nothing, nothing for 5 years. Like at a certain point, you're like, I am not getting any backup. I'm gonna have to do this on my own. That is my life. All right. So iPhone asks, yeah, and you got the message about when this. You can tell I'm so hot. Oh my God, it's so hot in here. What would Atlantis be doing now? Is there a link to that timeline and the injections and that stuff? Okay. Wait, let me hydrate. It's so hot. Atlantis hasn't fallen yet. Just as Christ, in some levels of interpretation of reality, or Jesus, is in that agonizing moment of suffering and death, Atlantis is in that agonizing moment of just about to be violated, raped, and invaded. Okay? I don't have a good example for you, like some slow motion type of thing, like reality is kind of frozen, like a car accident or something like that. You're like, oh no, this is about to happen. And you are watching everything in slow motion. Particle A is about to collide with particle B. Bad things are going to happen. So in ancient Concarn Atlantis, we are all active Christs with precog and can see the effing future. Some of the aspects of Atlanteans protected themselves by being like, shields up, let's go into a little protective force field. And they create a little pocket world for themselves, and they don't get their minds invaded. They go into the panic room. They're like, invaders are here, get into the panic room, close the door. And then they close and seal everything off. And that is what becomes in your world what you know as inner earth, Shangri-La, Shambhala, Agartha, Hagartha. These are all different words for the same place. Sequestered consciousness that was not invaded, but that lives in a tiny bubble of air pocket of reality, just kind of like barely breathing. They're like, we're barely alive. I hope we don't use up all of our oxygen. I hope somebody gets to us soon. They're not powerful. Otherwise, could you be like, why don't they help us out? Where's cosmic law enforcement attitude? And I'm like, they would love to help you out. They are barely breathing. They are running out of oxygen in their little sequestered panic room. Okay, so they're not powerful to be able to help us. What else is going on in Atlantis? Some people in Atlantis are making a negotiation. They're like betraying the rest of us. They see and sense the invasion coming, and they're like, oh, bad effed up SHIT is going to happen. I think I'll negotiate with my future captors, try to see if I can get a good possibility to eat steak in the Matrix. They are exactly like the character in the Matrix known as Cypher, who is negotiating with his captors, and he's like this: you can reinsert me into the Matrix as long as I get to eat steak. Except a piece of juicy steak, chomps on it, goes chomp, chomp, chomp. He was evil. And it's betrayal of some of our own beautiful earthly consciousness brothers and sisters who saw this planetary violation and impending rape. And they said, don't hurt me, don't hurt me, hurt those other people over there. Don't eat me, don't eat me. Insert me into your next constrictive layer of reality. I will help you. I'll give up my brothers and sisters. Give me a comfortable existence. I want to eat steak in the Matrix. And those are the people who ended up becoming what you know as the ruling family in this world here. They're satanics. So that's like the House of Windsor, the House of Bush, the House of Saud. These are the magical houses or esoteric power structures of your world, family bloodlines, or whoever are the 13 most evil families, as you know, Yahoo answers, the 13 evil families and bloodlines that have been watching over this place for a long amount of time. They are complicit with your captors. Your captors are known as, like, whatever, the archons or whatever, but we call them the pooties, those pesky occupiers of the interstices, the consciousness residues from Mars, those who effed up their own lives and existences so badly that they then decided to go and come to the next planet and F up the next planet. Like, the chomping will continue from planet to planet. And so those are the morally culpable and complicit collaborators with the invaders. They're like, yep, open the door, come on in. Like, it's clearly like you're gonna win. Just make it easy on us, come on in. Or like in World War II, the French Vichy government said to the Nazis, like, sure, come on in, come into our country, come run France, and then just give us an easy job. Don't murder us. And that is what those people did. And then there's you and I. So we are clearly like, I don't think any of you guys are the evil, king and queen of Great Britain or anything like that, watching my show over here. I think that you are all the good people who were put into a type of consciousness reduction, disempowerment, and slavery, and being fed upon or parasited in this level of reality. So to answer the question, like, if Atlantis weren't invaded, what would we be doing now? That's like that billboard that you see at the airport. Like, if you lived here, you'd be home by now. Like, you would be having an awesome effing life if that stuff wasn't happening right now. But that stuff is happening or is about to happen because there is a giant horde of unresolved consciousnesses that you need to do something about, because otherwise you are not going to be able to continue to be free and in existence. So if Atlantis had not been invaded or destabilized, it would be a perfect paradise system. But that's like saying also, if Christ consciousness in 2019, 2020, in this level of reality, hadn't been subverted, or what is it called? Like when you get a pathogen, like infected in some way, we would all be having a beautiful ascension. We would all be, if you lived here, you'd be ascended by now. If we didn't have that bad stuff happen in 2020, 2019, you would all be ascended by now. And you should feel mad about that. You'd be like, wait, Aurora, you mean like I wouldn't have to pay my Geico bill? Yeah, I do. Like for the past 5 years, you've been struggling along with your you got to pay the bills, you got to get the groceries. And it's harder than ever now to make it in the materialistic realm. You would not be facing all of those difficulties because you would have essentially a magic wand that you could use to manifest whatever you need in reality. And we've talked in this class many semesters about like manifesting cups of coffee or pounds of coffee, because everybody needs coffee in the morning. And when you use your psychic powers, like there's got to be some coffee around here somewhere, and you just manifest a pound of coffee or a perfect cup sitting on the park bench next to you, you would do that and more. You would manifest tiny screws, like I have. You would manifest the solution to your physical ailments. You would manifest the rectification of your social dynamics that are out of balance. Yeah. So iPhone asks, what about oversouls? How come they can't help? Yes, this is late. So I don't know how to talk with you about oversouls, because I think that oversouls is probably a concept that has been distorted and misrepresented to you in terms of New Age erroneous partial information. And so when I talk to you about oversouls, I am probably using that word in a different way than you are. All of the consciousnesses that are clustered around your pineal gland and that connect to you, everybody who's in ancient concurrent Atlantis, everybody who's in the Orion Wars, in Lyra or Lyra, these are all your different layers of reality or your oversoul, and you are all facing the same pile of garbage at the same time. You're all in the SHIT together. And you, in this constricted, smallest layer of reality, at the Tootsie Roll center of the Tootsie Pop, are figuring it the F on out, figuring out the antidote, figuring out the genetic solution to the Rubik's Cube of life. And then from this tiny epicenter or seed crystal, you emanate outward the solution to all these other layers of reality, including the larger realities that I told you about. So this is the end result causality structure reverberation from what is known as the Orion Wars. And this is deep trauma. Like you have personal trauma, you have ancestral trauma or familial trauma, you have planetary trauma. You got solar system trauma, that's Mars or Tiamat or Marduk, and also Venus and also Mercury. And then you've got galactic trauma, and galactic trauma is known as the Orion Wars. The layer of the Milky Way that is known as the Orion Arm, like one of the swirls. If you look there, you will see that the stars are disarranged. In other areas of the Milky Way, the stars are perfectly arranged, maybe not like my shirt, but very regular. But when you look at the Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy, there's like a splotch, like somebody splotched some paint on the canvas there. And it was a war that was bad enough to move stars out of their orbit. Stars were destroyed. It was the invention of death, and stars got moved out of their orbit. And that layer of reality is where you probably experienced it, not everyone in our class, probably most of our class, as Lyrans or Lyrans, Lyra. And those are lion-headed people who are amazing and beautiful. And you are those people. But you're going to ask the same question, like, if they're so great, couldn't they see it coming? If they're all that, how come they couldn't see it coming? How come they didn't do something? And it's because there was a sudden and unexpected use of time distortion technology that they could not anticipate, or that they could not or did not see, that blindsided them. And that happened there. And then you know what? There was what happened in Atlantis, another time when it's like, well, can't you see down the road? Can't you see what's happening? How can this even happen? What had happened? And that those questions of like, well, how can this even happen? That is trauma. Every time your rational mind goes into that, when you're like huffing and puffing, like, but how can this even happen? How can that even happen? That is trauma. And you just have to respect that you've been traumatized. How you move past that is to say, I don't know how it can happen, but it did happen. And I have to do something in response to it. And that is soul growth and maturation. You can go into blamefulness, which is, who is responsible? Like, I don't know who made this mess. Who is responsible? I would like to talk to the manager, please. Like, I don't like what's happening here. You can go into that, but I really mostly go into self-responsibility, where I'm like, I don't know who's responsible. And I can try to talk to the manager, but you know what I'd rather do? I would rather fix stuff. I would rather use flying rainbow lasagna to just fix stuff than try to go through the torturous cosmic complaints department and hope that someone is going to hear my plea at a certain point. So instead of being like, look at this mess, call the janitor. Somebody didn't do their job. I'm like, you know what? Somebody clearly didn't do their job. Don't even waste your time calling the janitor. Janitor is out to lunch. Get me the bucket and the mop. If there's not a bucket and a mop, I will make a bucket and a mop, and I will fix this. That is how I get past all of that. Because otherwise, like, you're traumatized and then you're tortured on top of being traumatized, and none of that is fun. So just find your self-empowerment to be able to do stuff about this. And they're saying admitting to fragments. Yeah, so when you talk about fragments, what you're really expressing and experiencing are that there are many layers where something wrong has happened to ourselves as divine outgrowths or pieces of God, things that never should have happened. And a lot of this is about interfacing with evil, even when you know that technically evil is so evil it can't exist. Because the ultimate cognitive dissonance is like, I know that God is good, and I know that I am God, and I'm making everything. Why did I make that crap over there? You're like, you didn't. Truth is, you didn't. It's like, where'd that crap come from? I don't know. Call the cosmic complaints department. You're like, at a certain point, I stop asking these questions, and I just fix it. And I know that that's not necessarily satisfying, that you might want to ask more philosophical questions and have more questions and answers. The real answer is, they're there. Don't ask so many more questions, rational mind. Get out of your anthropomorphic viewpoint, get into pure math, and fix it. That's my approach. Because all of the rest is like just wasted hot air. That all of the rest is just like gyrations, bicycling in place, no traction, getting nowhere, unproductive. and just marinating in more trauma and re-traumatizing yourself and going into disempowerment and all these things. It's not a rational solution. It's not a rational problem. It's not a rational approach. The rational mind and the cosmic intellect here is not prepared to be able to solve this Rubik's Cube. You must get beyond that rational mind. And it's also even beyond the cosmic Christ mind to solve this. And when I say that, you might be like, crap, Aurora, like, if it's beyond the intelligence level of the cosmic Christ mind, like, what chance do we have? Because that's our smartest guy. And I'm like, lasagna. So this is why, even though we love and admire Christ so much, the royal we, like the smartest, the best, the most benevolent Christ must have effed up somewhere, must have been not fully adequate, must have been blindsided, must have been erroneous, must have been mistaken, not knowing everything. That's fine. It's like when you find out that your hero has a problem or a flaw or can be wounded or can be injured. Like that happened. That happened. And then what you have to do is be more than that. And that is soul maturation and growth. Instead of spiraling down into death and being like, that's it, our smartest guy and our best player couldn't solve this problem, I'm just going to give up. You can't give up. You have to be like, that guy couldn't do it, or that group couldn't do it, but you know what? I'm going to do it. And that is not hubris. That is not in error. That is belief in yourself. And again, the maturation process. Moving from a pile of goo into a viable butterfly. You're like, I can't do that. I'm just a pile of goo. Well, of course, not as a pile of goo. You have to envision yourself and imagine yourself into a structured form as your mature adult form that can correctly confront what needs to be confronted and do the cleanup and restructuring that needs to actually happen. iPhone says, I don't know if we will ever know. And yes, who cares? We are here now. Absolutely. I think that we will know. And what I say is often like that funny little phrase from the original Willy Wonka movie. Willy Wonka is like, please hold all questions and comments to the end of the tour. And like, of course, by that point, nothing is relevant. So yeah, like you're moving through, like you're gyrating through a wild labyrinth of crazy, fantasies and phantasms and phantasmagoria, like a whole bunch of crazy stuff is happening. And I'm like, please hold all questions and comments to the end of the tour. And like, that means when you activate your crown and you connect to divinity, your questions and comments will all be answered. I'm gonna be like, I see the entire time tapestry now, and I get it. And here's what you will get. You will get in your own life the connection between point A and point B at the back of the tapestry. Why did this bad thing happen over here? Oh, because this crappy thing that happened over here. And you're going to see in your solar system. So you're going to see in your family, you're going to see in ancient Atlantis, concurrent Atlantis. You're going to see in your solar system, why did this happen on Mars? And then you're going to see the Orion. Why did that happen in Orion? And then you're going to see the whole thing. You're going to be like, oh, now I know why all this stuff happened. And then you're going to recognize why your rational directions of questioning were inadequate, and the rational mind was totally not the right shape of tool to be able to fix, solve, or heal these questions, problems, or concerns. And then you'll also see how flying rainbow lasagna was necessary to be able to rectify, reshape, fix, and heal all of these things. And then you'll actually have like the best aha moment. You'll be like, oh, I get it, across all time and space, reverberating outward, all these things that actually make sense. But that will be like the end of one chapter, a page break, a pagination, and then from there, the outgrowth into the next thing. It does not mean that you will have a cycle and repeat the same nonsense over again. Not at all. You have gotten that nonsense out of your system. You have superseded that nonsense. You have transcended it. And some of the transcendence is in the ultimate trust of, like looking up to and admiring a Christ, a leader, external savior figure, and then recognizing how flawed that is. You're like, yeah, I trusted this guy or these guys over here, and they totally didn't help me. And then they did not pick me up after soccer practice, and I was stuck there in the rain, and then I had to walk home. I was very mad, and but I fixed it and I saved myself. And then it's like, well, is that going to be repeated again later in your next cosmic incarnation or next cycle of reality? And you're like, no, of course not, because you already learned about and mastered that. So the synopsis is it is correct and appropriate to love and admire those that we look up to and those that are powerful and amazing. But it is also appropriate and righteous to come into your own levels of power. And this stage of maturation is very reflected in what you experience in human development. When you are a tiny child, a lot of people look up to and idolize their parents, even though clearly your parents are flawed. They're just human beings who manage to have sex, all right? They are not perfect gods. But from your tiny infantile mind, you're like, wow, like they open the door and there's like juice and cookies inside of the giant box. Like they're amazed. You know what I mean? Like you think your parents can do anything. And then maybe one thing happens and you're like, I'm disappointed. That's it. They aren't God. They're not perfect. And then you start to learn like mom and dad say the wrong thing sometimes. Sometimes they lie. They're like, you said we were going to the park and then we didn't go to the park. You lied. And this is not like the crushing of your spirit. It is the rectification of your expectations of reality, because although you looked at your parents as if they are divine creatures, they are human beings doing the best they can. I think we're having the same experience with the assessment of Christ, the consciousness network, and that level of, reality, and the people that are on that level of reality. Definitely they're benevolent. Like I want you to know, like your mom and dad are good people. Your Christ family are good people. Looking at them and from your infantile consciousness or as a baby sea turtle and looking up to them is appropriate. Then also you go through levels of self-development and reach adolescence. And I've never had children, but I have done a lot of childcare work and I know about young people. And like when you get to be a teenager, you're like, screw you, mom and dad. Like you're completely wrong and you know nothing. I am getting a mohawk and possibly a nose piercing or other questionable body modification. And I'm doing things on my own. And your parents are always going to be like, okay, you do things your way. And then, because they remember what it felt like to be teenagers as well. And then by the time you're in your mid-20s, you kind of reconcile and you're like, mom, dad, I thought that you guys were stupid idiots. And now that I've been in the world a lot more, I see like you were 50% right. You weren't completely wrong, which is what I thought when I was 16. You were partially right. And then you have, coming back together and a reconciliation, because now you know what it's like to either be in the world or have a relationship or have a child. And definitely things change when you have your own children and you learn about parenting. And then you're like, oh, I thought my mom was totally stupid. But now I realize what it's like to be a mom and what this actually feels like. So I think that there's something similar that is going on when you have not yet remembered that you are Christ and you look at Christ as your loving parent and you're like, oh, I think that this is infallible divine benevolence. And then you start to learn, like, I think this is fallible. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. I'm horribly disappointed. How can this be? I guess I'll have to do this on my own. And then as you get to larger levels of perspective and perception in reality, you're like, oh, now I understand more of the challenges that Christ was facing. Christ is not an idiot, but was brave, noble, and courageous, doing the best that they or it could under extraordinary circumstances. Like we're talking about a war in time that is incredibly difficult to navigate. And that as you are now reaching levels of conscious maturity, you recognize the difficulties and have a lot more respect and celebration for, your cosmic parent. Let me go to my notes. I didn't read enough from my notes. Wait. You know what's really annoying? Every time, literally every time I prepare, hold on a second. I'm gonna pause. Everyone, just take a moment to pull up my notes so I can squint and scroll and see and make sure that I wrote the correct things. But I always prepare everything meticulously, and then it doesn't always transfer over, because I also highlighted some things that I wanted to be able to talk about. And so now I'm looking for the things that I highlighted, not necessarily getting there. I get so annoyed by that like all of my communication energy also melts away. I'm like so mad that my notes didn't transfer over when I took time to prepare them. Okay, maybe I just need to not look at these notes, but that is very, very bogus. Let's talk more about pineal gland and its connection to Christ consciousness. So your pineal gland is a physical structure in your body. Christ consciousness is the emanation of frequencies that come out of that physical structure. Your pineal gland is like the movie projector that the film strip runs through, so you can look at the movie of reality. But the movie of reality is an intangibility, a light form that is only present when electricity is making the projector project, is only present when the machinery is alive and functional. So the pineal gland is the physical movie projector, but the phenomenon of consciousness is what is being projected into the world. And when death occurs, the phenomenon of consciousness is no longer here. So the apparatus is secondary to and not as important as the experience of what the apparatus produces. Your experience of being in a third dimensional reality, of other people, and of time structures. A lot of what Antichrist is doing, both the hardware, the software, the connection to DNA, RNA, and reality, is to subvert and manipulate the reality projection mechanism. That's what dark magic is. So in a world with no dark magic, you have your own innate connection to divinity. You have your pineal gland, which is your movie projector, and you're making reality. And you're like, I'm the director. I'm making stories happen. I'm the actor. I'm acting through the stories. I'm the costumer. I'm making the dresses. You're like, I make everything. And you walk around in your creation knowingly, intentionally. And that's what our lives are like in concurrent ancient Atlantis for the catastrophe and the degradation. But in this world, there are many things that have subverted the correct functionality of the movie projector of reality. Some of those subversions are in the levels of language, yellow chakra, ego. Some of them have been subverted on a genetic level as DNA and its dance in freedom is really a huge part of how reality is manifested. So what you're doing with your higher faculties and Christ consciousness is not only perceiving reality or reading a person like a book, but also creating and generating reality events. And it takes a huge amount of expertise to do this, not just playing the piano notes that have already been created, but to innovate music in the moment and to innovate music that is correct and harmonically pleasing. And that's what it is to be a player in the band. Antichrist or Antichrist hardware, it's technology and dark magic subverts that healthy reality manifestation process or baking of the cookies of reality. The evil cookies that are baked are cookies of self-service when individuals or organisms act only for their own benefits in creating events or reality structures that actively harm others, that actively steal life force energy or destabilize others, that actively create destruction, death, catastrophe, or incapacitation of others, but that moderately and temporarily benefit the dark magician. It is the expression of sub and unconscious desires, which are largely destructive, and they are sub and unconscious because they are inappropriate. Like desires can be overt, not sub or unconscious, when they are positive and healthy desires. You're like, I have a desire to eat like a healthy kale salad. That is your overt desire. No problem there. No one's going to judge you for that. But what if you're like, my desire is to eat nothing but chocolate eclairs. So I'm not going to admit to this. I'm going to make it a sub or an unconscious desire because I know that's not socially appropriate. I know you can't live on eclairs. I'm going to bury it. And then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pretend it's not me. I'm going to disassociate from it. And then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pretend that my left hand is not really me. And it's totally not connected to me. And it's going to go around. It's going to get chocolate eclairs, shove chocolate eclairs into my mouth. And I'm going to be like, oh, I don't know where this came from. I don't know how this happened. Somehow it's happening. And that is what dark magic is. It is like this un or subconscious desire that is inexplicable that some people have, or organisms or organizations have, either to serve themselves or to serve their own tribal small organization at the expense of the whole. And it never makes sense because I'm like, it's just destroying yourself and everything that is important. Like, it is not rational. And this is also why iPhone and other students that are in this class, I respect your rationality and your line of questioning and all the things that you talk about. But when you start to examine reality and the flaws in reality, you might begin to recognize that none of this makes sense. It is not rational, including the current agenda of the current regime. In a lot of ways, that is also not rational, because if you destroy DNA to certain levels, you destroy the fabric of space-time, and then nobody has a playground. Like, you're like, I not only want to cheat at the game and, you know, whatever, win all of the basketball points or something like that, so I can win, but I'm gonna cheat so hard, I'm gonna like destroy the basketball, destroy the basketball court, destroy the town, destroy the surface of the earth, destroy the fabric of space-time. It's like stupid. Like, you don't win when you do that. So it is not rational. Please know that what you struggle against is not rational, not healthy. It is pure dysfunction, and that there's even real questions about where it can come from, how it can be in reality, and how that stuff can even be in existence, because it is so flawed as a proposal. And there are so many filters and fail-safe mechanisms that are supposed to filter that out of existence and not have it be something that you can even experience, that if you go into those pure levels of logic and rationality, you would be like me in the first few baby duckling years that I was here, where you'd be like, that can't be, that's wrong, that's an impossibility, like, that's not allowed. And you would never be productive or get anything done, because you would just spend all the time pointing out irrationalities. And at a certain point, like after a couple of years, you're going to be like, I gotta get a job. I need money. I gotta have a place to live. I gotta do all these different things. And I can't just always be pointing out the irrationalities and flaws of this world. And that is pretty much how I came into, you know, my present level of being. But I will commiserate with you. I'm like, oh yeah, like if you watch a movie with me, Aurora, I'm the worst person to watch a movie with, or a TV show, because I'm going to be always pointing out, like, that's not how it actually happens. That's not possible. That's not right. That's not right. And be like, Aurora, just suspend your disbelief. It's just a fictional tale. And I'm like, I can't. I'm constantly analyzing everything and constantly assessing what can and cannot be. And I will tell you that even this, when I have examined with my inner telescope, that is also a microscope, the origins of DNA in this body, going all the way back to what is seen as the moment of planetary invasion of consciousnesses from Mars that are about to totally subvert things in Atlantis, I do not see a connection to the human genome. There is actually no causality structure that makes it possible for those flawed consciousnesses and putis to somehow get into human DNA, cause that next fall down the stairs or next contraction into this level of reality, and that bring us into this level of mortality. There's actually no causality structure. If you look at the back of the time tapestry, there is no thread connecting these two events. And that is a pretty heavy thing to recognize. But you know what? I call the janitor. There's a big mess. Be like, technically there cannot be this mess here, but you know what? I see a big mess. And I called the janitor and no one is here. So I'm going to make a bucket and a mop and clean it up, even though technically this mess is an impossibility that cannot even be in existence. And Mary Ellen says, this place was never rational to me, LOL. Oh man, yeah, totally. So perhaps this diatribe today has been invigorating to you, because you're like, you know something? I always knew this place was effed up, just like Mary Ellen. You're like, I always knew this was like this. What a lovely confirmation that things are not the way they're supposed to be, are technically an impossibility and cannot be this way. So what I can give to you is, what I can model for you is, effective coping mechanisms for how to live in an insane world. And also, most importantly, effective tools for freedom. Instead of just being like, oh, well, this place is insane. Let's, do this or that and try to pass the time. I'm like, this place is insane. There are a lot of things that are technical impossibilities, but let's do flying rainbow lasagna in order to restructure reality. No matter how badly the story appears to be written or how distorted time appears to be, or let's say you have a beautiful dress, it's all wrinkled up. No matter how wrinkled up it is, let's get a wonderful iron and smooth out all of the time wrinkles and make this fit properly. And even if we can't say, how can these wrinkles exist? Who treated the dress of time this badly? How did this happen? Those are inconsequential questions, even though I know that your mind wants to know. Hold all questions till the end of the tour. I'm sure all questions will be answered, but for now, let us act in cosmic practicalities and iron out the dress of reality. Okay, so opening the floor to questions, comments, or anything else that I can share with you, and then I will take care of Cheeky, but it might still be too hot. Might not take her for a walk. We'll have to see. Okay, and let's get to this beautiful comment. You say, I enjoyed this. I think it's very difficult for you to tell the truth. I felt all of this. Thank you. It is, something on a human relatable level, like on the level of myself as an individual, I will tell you, like, I have struggled with this a lot because I have a huge amount of love and devotion to not only my family in Christ, my galactic family in Christ, the beautiful teacher, Jesus, who was here 2,000 years ago, and the ideals that are presented by that cosmic and galactic level of highly evolved society. I'm also very, very invested in the morality and righteousness of this cosmic structure. It's not just math, 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 = 2. And that is right. That is correct, and it is right. And I am inflamed and allergic when people tell me, no, 1 + 1 = 25, or sometimes 0.3. And I'm like, no, that is not right. And I'm going to tell you all about it and how unright it is. And I've been in that world with you guys here for over 20 years. And it has been very, very difficult to recognize that, because every time you see something that's not right, you get a little bit traumatized. Like, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. And you can spend your whole entire life pointing out the things that aren't right. So what I have learned is ways to navigate all the stuff that isn't right and to actually start to fix it. And I know that that is a positive thing to do. And there's a lot of deep trauma around this whole story that requires a lot of healing. And when I talk about the crucifixion and those events being like some of the most heavily shielded, veiled, and propagandized events in the world, at a certain point, you will see it clearly and will know what's going on, and you will have your aha moment. Like, oh, that is what really happened. That is what really happened. And you will get satisfaction. You will know what's going on. Michael has a beautiful comment. Michelangelo says, thank you, Master Aurora. Love to all. Thank you very much. Love back to you. I want to say thank you to everybody who is in this class. Thank you for being excellent people, for being good, for being who you are, for spending the time to be able to listen to me and tune into me. And thank you for being, excellent students. I truly think that you are the best humans that are here. And I'm appreciative also of people who catch the archive of what I'm sharing here. I should have started out class, by being able to say, hooray, I have wonderful news, but I'll just end on this positive note. Hooray, I have wonderful news, after I talk about like this whole entire bummer for 3 hours. But dun 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 dun, because page break, sorbet, New Year's Eve celebration with Aurora in Sedona. Gonna plan the next Flying Rainbow Lasagna retreat. So I'm going to include all of the information about this in the description of this video. I hope that you made it through my whole entire long lecture / diatribe, and that you can find this here. Very, very excited to invite everyone. So it's going to be a New Year's Eve celebration in Sedona, December 26th through January 1st. And that is in a new place. I found a wonderful spot. It's actually about 20 minutes just outside of Sedona, a very beautiful, expansive place. There's a giant indoor dance studio where I'll be doing our dance, because it's going to be like December and it can be a little bit cold there, but also beautiful areas outside. We will be going to hiking and water places outside, dance under the stars. It's no alcohol celebration, so I'm not really in alignment with alcohol, but we will be having all sorts of wonderful mocktails and a celebration under the stars, weather permitting, at our New Year's Eve gala. So if you would like to know all of the details, just check out my little brochure that will be linked in the description of this video. I'm super excited and happy to be able to be doing this. So my cosmic weather report has been I did the last retreat here in Ojai in May. And I'm sensing a lot of turmoil. And the whole time I'm like, oh, I can't wait to plan my next retreat. But I'm like, turmoil, no, not yet. And then I'm like, September, October, this is going to be a ton of turmoil. And this is me sensing down the road, precog, what's going to happen. So I sense that December will be a wonderful time because we will be over the hump or past the roller coaster of wild craziness. Strap yourselves in, guys, because the next 2 months is going to be a wild ride, but we will be on the other side of that. So please know that I am looking out for you guys, and I would not create an event if I felt that there would be social instability, or if it wasn't safe to travel, or if you problems with the economy or whatever. So by the time we get to New Year's Eve in December, we'll be past all that stuff. So please know you are going to be on an optimal timeline. We'll have a wonderful, safe event. You will be able to travel effectively. You'll be able to come and have a wonderful experience. In fact, I'm seeing it as a celebration of our inevitable success as a race, as a species, as planetary structure. We're going to go through all of these portals with flying colors between now and December, and we will emerge into a wonderful possibility. And then what do you do with Flying Rainbow Lasagna? What is this all about? It is about positive reality creation. So when we gather together and dance as a group, we are painting a positive future, intending and dancing with discipline for wonderful events to happen. And this is how I can tell you with assurance, we have a very bright future. All the things that I talked about today are, again, a 3-hour-long bummer fest. I'm glad that you guys were able to make it through, but I'd like to leave you with something much more positive, that everything that I embody and teach and share with you about lasagna is really about the potentials for what we can create. What I talked about with Christ consciousness, when it is functional and when it is well nourished, you have a tool that you can use to create reality. And it wasn't functional and nourished for a long amount of time. It even faced a lot of degradation. But Flying Rainbow Lasagna means that you can either fix that system or improve it or create a whole new system, however you would like to think about that or structure it. But you can create a much, much better future. And we are not forced to go through negative time cycles or repeat the negative repercussions that we've experienced in the past. Far from it. I look at the December New Year's Eve celebration as amazing jumping off point into something that's going to be really positive, nourishing, enlightening, something that energizes you to be able to keep going forward. It's been a very long, grueling marathon of consciousness for many people for a long amount of time. And please know that you do get Gatorade or renewal or whatever it is that you need. You're like, I'm so, tired and thirsty and bedraggled, and don't worry, you get everything that you need, and you get it because you create it. And if you are not confident in your abilities to create, I feel confident in my abilities to create, and that is why I am a leader of these dance experiences, that I create a circumstance within which you can create and learn. And so I'll do the calculations for you. If you need help to do your homework calculations, I'll be like, I will help you with the lasagna calculations so that you can figure out how to do this. And when we gather together, we dance for the entirety. And that even includes, if you want to be well, the entirety, even the Torquemadas, you know something? We do dance for Torquemada, because what we do is we dance to send Torquemada to entropy, because technically that guy and that evil does not even exist. So we dance in order to erase and send to entropy the things that are harmful and pathogenic and that should not even exist, and then to exacerbate what's good and even bring in or create more new and good stuff. And it's really, really important for you to hold that vision coming out of many millennia or lifetimes of difficulty, and then coming out of the past 5 years of very intense spiritual warfare. I don't give like false hope or any of those types of things. I'm not going to candy coat things for you. I'm going to only tell you very truthfully that you should know that there's a reason to be hopeful for the future, and that there's an enormous amount of empowerment that you can access to be able to create the future that you would like to experience. Okay, good. So check out my brochure. And of course, Chiki's here. Chiki's right over here. Chiki will be with us in Sedona. She comes with me everywhere, and she's an amazing dancer herself. And I hope that you guys are able to come and be a part of things and meet Chiki in person and meet me in person if you haven't already met me. So thank you so much. Thank you. Very positive blessings and encouragement to everybody. Thank you so much.